I handed my wife a pen worth more than her car and a trust fund worth $236 million. She smiled the smile of a woman who had finally won the lottery. Then she handed me a glass of water. My housekeeper whispered 3 words that saved my life. Don't drink. Swap. So I did. 1 minute later, my wife took a sip, and my world exploded. Before I tell you how I brought down an empire of lies, please tell me where you are watching from in the comments. Hit, like if you believe that greed is the deadliest poison of all. My name is Augustus King. I am 70 years old. To the world, I am a retired real estate mogul, a man who built skyscrapers from the dirt of the Chicago South Side. To my family, I am just an old man with a bad heart and a heavy checkbook. They think my mind is fading. They think my hands shake from age. They are wrong. My hands shake because I am holding back the rage of a lifetime. Tonight, that rage finally found a target. I sat in my high-back leather chair, the one I bought after closing my first $1 million deal 40 years ago. The air in the study was thick with the scent of old paper and expensive perfume. Camilla stood across from me. She is 42 years old, beautiful in a sharp, predatory way, and she has been my wife for 5 years. Tonight, she wore a red dress that looked like a warning sign. Her eyes were fixed on the document in front of me. It was my new will. Or rather, the will she had spent months convincing me to sign. "Augustus, honey, just sign right there," she said softly. Her voice was smooth like polished glass. "You know this is for the best. If your heart gives out, or if your memory gets worse, I need to be able to protect your legacy." I looked at the papers. The legal jargon was dense, but the meaning was simple. It granted Camilla full control over the King family trust in the event of my incapacitation or death. $236 million. All of it hers to control. My daughter Ebony would get a monthly allowance determined by Camilla. It was a death sentence for my daughter's financial freedom and a coronation for my wife. My hand trembled as I held the gold fountain pen. I let it shake. I needed her to see the frailty. I needed her to believe that the lion was old and toothless. "I am not sure, Camilla," I mumbled, letting my voice crack. "Ebony might be upset." "Ebony is young and foolish," Camilla said quickly, walking around the desk to place a hand on my shoulder. Her touch was cold. "She is married to Hunter now. They have their own life. You need someone who understands the empire. Just sign it, Augustus. Do it for us." For us. There was no us. There was only her and the money. But I lowered the pen to the paper. I signed my name. Augustus King. The signature was shaky and jagged. It looked like the writing of a man who was ready to die. Camilla let out a breath she had been holding. It sounded like a hiss. She snatched the papers away almost too fast, tucking them into a leather folder. There she said, her eyes gleaming with triumph. "Now you do not have to worry about a thing." She walked over to the small bar cart in the corner of the room. This was our nightly ritual. Every evening at 9 o'clock she prepared my special vitamin cocktail. She said it was a blend of supplements to help my heart and my memory. I had been taking it for 6 months. In those 6 months I had grown weaker. My vision had blurred. My hands had started to shake. I had trusted her. I had been a fool. I watched her back as she mixed the powder into the water. She was humming a little tune. It was the sound of victory. She stirred the glass with a silver spoon, the clinking sound echoing in the silent room. "Here you go, my love," she said, turning around. She held 2 glasses. One for her, one for me. We always drank water together before bed. It was her way of showing solidarity. Or so I thought. She placed my glass on the coaster directly in front of me. The water was slightly cloudy. "Drink up," she urged, lifting her own glass. "You need your strength." I reached for the glass. My fingers brushed the cold crystal. Suddenly, the heavy oak door of the study creaked open. It was Rosa, my housekeeper. Rosa has been with me for 20 years. She knew this house better than she knew her own. She carried a tray with a fresh pitcher of water and some napkins. "Excuse me, Mr. King," Rosa said, keeping her head down. "I forgot to change the water pitcher earlier." Camilla sighed loudly, rolling her eyes. "Not now, Rosa. We are having a moment. Get out." Rosa walked past the desk to place the napkins down. She moved between Camilla and me. For a split second, she blocked Camilla's view of me. In that second, Rosa leaned down as if to straighten the coaster. Her voice was barely a breath, a whisper so low only I could hear it. "Don't drink. Swap." She put something in it. Rosa straightened up and walked away, her face a mask of stone. I looked at her retreating back. My heart hammered against my ribs. Rosa would never lie. She had no reason to. She hated Camilla, but she feared me. If she was taking this risk, it was real. I looked at the glass in front of me. Death in a crystal cup. Camilla had turned away, walking back to the bar cart to put the spoon in the sink. She pulled out her phone. I saw the screen light up. She was texting someone. I knew who it was. Hunter, my son-in-law, the man who had married my daughter and was currently drowning in gambling debts. This was my chance. The old Augustus King, the street fighter from Chicago, woke up. The trembling in my hands stopped instantly. I didn't look like a frail old man anymore. I looked like a magician. I reached out. My hand moved with a speed I hadn't used in decades. I grabbed my glass. I grabbed her glass, which she had left on the edge of the desk. I switched them. It took less than a second. I placed her glass in front of me and my glass where hers had been. I sat back and clasped my hands together, resuming my pose of a tired old man. Camilla turned back around. She slid her phone into her pocket. She looked at me and then at the glasses. She didn't notice a thing. Her arrogance was her blindfold. She thought I was too slow, too stupid, too far gone to pull a move like that. "Who were you texting?" I asked, my voice raspy. "Oh, just the caterers for the charity gala next week," she lied smoothly. She picked up the glass I had placed there. The glass that was meant for me. The glass that Rosa said was tainted. "Well, Augustus," she said, raising the glass, "to your health, and to our future." The irony was so thick I could taste it. She was toasting to my health with the poison intended to end it. "To our future," I repeated, lifting the clean glass. We drank. I watched her throat move as she swallowed. She drank it all, every drop. She set the glass down with a satisfied sigh. I sipped my water slowly. It tasted like victory. We sat in silence for a moment. She was waiting for me to fade. She was waiting for the confusion to set in, for my eyes to roll back, for my heart to stutter. She was watching me like a hawk, expecting the show she had paid for. But the show was happening in the other chair. It started 30 seconds later. Camilla frowned. She reached up and touched her throat. She coughed, a dry hacking sound. "Are you okay, my dear?" I asked, feigning concern. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a gurgle. Her eyes widened. She looked at her hands. They were starting to tremble. Real tremors, not the fake ones I had been performing. She tried to stand up. Her legs gave way instantly. She crashed to the floor, taking the expensive lamp with her. "Augustus," she wheezed. "Help." I didn't move. I sat in my chair, looking down at her. She was clawing at the carpet. Foam began to gather at the corners of her mouth. Her body jerked violently, a seizure taking hold. The poison was fast. It was brutal. It was likely a high dose of sedatives mixed with something to spike blood pressure. She had meant to make it look like a stroke or a heart attack, a natural end for an old man, but her body was fighting it hard. "Help me," she screamed, but the words were slurred. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. I looked into her terrified eyes. "You know, Camilla," I said calmly, my voice strong and steady, "you really should be more careful with your vitamins. They can have nasty side effects." Her eyes locked onto mine. In that moment, through the haze of the poison, she saw it. She saw that my hands weren't shaking. She saw that my mind was clear. She realized what had happened. "You," she gasped. I looked at my watch. I counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3. I needed to wait long enough for the poison to do real damage, but not long enough to kill her. Death was too easy for her. I wanted her alive. I wanted her to face the consequences. After 45 seconds, her convulsions slowed. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She was losing consciousness. Now it was time for the performance. I grabbed the phone on my desk and dialed 911. I forced my breathing to hyperventilate. I made my voice high and panicked. "Emergency. Please help my wife. She collapsed. She is foaming at the mouth. Please hurry. The address is 1400 Lakeshore Drive. Please, she is dying." I hung up the phone. I looked down at the woman who had shared my bed and plotted my death. She was still, breathing shallowly but still. Rosa appeared at the door. She looked at Camilla on the floor, then at me. She didn't look surprised. "The ambulance is coming." "Rosa," I said, standing up and straightening my jacket. "Did you drink it?" Rosa asked, her voice steady. "No," I said. "She did. Rosa nodded once. Good. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights. The sirens were already wailing in the distance, getting closer. The game had changed. The will she had made me sign was now a piece of evidence. The glass on the table was the smoking gun, but this was just the beginning. Camilla was just the soldier. The general was still out there. Hunter, my son-in-law. He was waiting for a call that would tell him I was dead or incapacitated. Instead, he was going to get a call that his partner in crime was in a coma. I heard the front door burst open. The paramedics rushed in their boots, heavy on the hardwood floor. They swarmed around Camilla, shouting medical terms, inserting tubes, checking vitals. "Sir, what happened?" one of them asked me. "I don't know," I stammered, putting my shaking hands back on. "We were just talking, and she drank her water, and then she fell. Please, save her." I watched them load her onto the stretcher. As they wheeled her out, I saw her phone lying on the floor where she had dropped it. I waited until the room was empty. I walked over and picked up the phone. It was locked, but I knew a trick. I grabbed a piece of clear tape from my desk. I walked out to the hallway where the paramedics had paused to adjust the gurney. In the chaos, no one noticed me reach out and press the tape against Camilla's thumb, hanging limp off the side of the stretcher. I pulled the tape off. I had her print. I went back into the study. I placed the tape over the home button of her phone. It unlocked. I opened her messages. The last text was to Hunter, sent 2 minutes before she collapsed. "It is done. He is drinking it now. The will is signed. We are rich, baby." I read it twice. Then I deleted the message. I didn't want the police to see it yet. I wanted Hunter to think he was safe. I wanted him to come to the hospital thinking he had won. I put the phone in my pocket. I grabbed my cane. I walked out the front door into the cool night air. The ambulance lights flashed red and blue, painting the driveway in the colors of emergency. I got into the back of the town car that Rosa had summoned. "Take me to the hospital," I told the driver. "I am coming for you, Hunter, and you won't even see me coming." The hospital waiting room smelled like bleach and stale coffee, a scent that always reminded me of endings. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my cane resting between my knees. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. It was the adrenaline of the hunt. I had just watched my wife convulse on the floor, and now I was waiting for the second head of the snake to arrive. I did not have to wait long. The automatic doors slid open with a hiss, and Hunter burst in. He looked exactly the way a concerned son-in-law should look. His hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, and his face was flushed with panic. But I knew better. I saw the way his eyes scanned the room, not looking for a doctor, but looking for me. When he spotted me, his expression shifted instantly from worry to accusation. He stormed across the room, his heavy footsteps echoing on the linoleum. "What did you do to her?" Hunter screamed. His voice was loud enough to turn every head in the waiting room. He stopped inches from my face, pointing a finger at my chest. I shrank back into my chair, making myself look smaller. I blinked rapidly, feigning confusion. "I do not know what you mean, Hunter," I stammered. "We were just drinking water and she fell." "Don't lie to me, you confused old man," Hunter shouted. He turned to the nurse at the front desk, who was now watching us with alarm. "You have to check him. He has been mixing up his medications for weeks. He probably put his heart pills in her drink. He is senile. He is a danger to himself and everyone else." I watched him build the narrative. It was impressive in a sickening way. He was not asking if Camilla was alive. He was not asking what the doctors said. He was immediately planting the seed that I was incompetent. He wanted a paper trail. He wanted a witness to say that Augustus King was losing his mind. This was his play. If I was declared incompetent, he could take control of the estate immediately while Camilla recovered. He grabbed my shoulder and shook me. "What did you give her, Augustus? Tell me right now." I let my head bob loosely. I let a tear roll down my cheek. "I just wanted her to be healthy," I whispered, my voice trembling. Hunter released me with a look of disgust. "See, he admitted it," Hunter told the nurse. "He thinks he was helping her. He is gone. His mind is gone." The nurse hurried over, but she did not look at me with fear. She looked at Hunter with suspicion. "Sir, you need to lower your voice," she said firmly. "This is a hospital. Please sit down or I will call security." Hunter huffed, adjusting his jacket. He sat down 3 seats away from me, refusing to look in my direction. He pulled out his phone and started typing furiously. I knew exactly who he was texting. He was texting Camilla. He did not know she was currently incapable of reading it. He was probably asking why I wasn't the one on the stretcher. A few minutes later, a doctor in a white coat emerged from the double doors. He looked tired. "Family of Camilla King," he called out. Hunter jumped up. I rose slowly, leaning heavily on my cane. We walked over to the doctor together. I am her son-in-law, Hunter said, taking charge. And this is her husband, but he is not quite all there. You can speak to me. The doctor glanced at me, then back at Hunter. She is stable, but her condition is severe, the doctor said. We suspect a neurotoxic event, likely a reaction to a combination of substances. She has suffered a significant seizure that led to temporary paralysis on her left side. Hunter's face went pale. Paralysis, he repeated. Yes, the doctor continued. And it has affected her speech centers. She is currently experiencing aphasia. She cannot speak or understand language properly. It might be temporary, or it might be permanent. We need to run more tests. I let out a low moan of distress, covering my mouth with my hand. Inside I was smiling. It was perfect. She was locked in her own body. She could see, she could hear, but she could not speak. She could not tell Hunter that I was the one who switched the glasses. She could not warn him. Can we see her? I asked, my voice shaky. The doctor nodded. Briefly. She needs rest. We followed the doctor down the hallway. Hunter walked ahead of me, impatient and angry. I trailed behind, dragging my left leg, slightly adding to the performance. When we entered the room, the only sound was the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. Camilla lay in the bed, hooked up to IV lines. Her face was slack on one side, drooped like melted wax. Her eyes were open. They were wild with panic. She saw Hunter and tried to make a sound, but only a guttural noise came out. Then her eyes shifted to me. The panic turned to pure, unadulterated hate. If looks could kill, I would have dropped dead right there. Hunter rushed to her side. Camilla. Oh my God, Hunter said, taking her good hand. I am here. We are going to fix this. I stood at the foot of the bed. I met her gaze. I straightened my posture just an inch, just enough for her to notice. I winked. Her monitor beeped faster. Hunter turned to look at the machine, then back at her. What is it, Camilla? What are you trying to say? She couldn't tell him. She tried to lift her arm to point at me, but it was heavy and useless. Hunter turned to the nurse who was adjusting the drip. Where are her personal effects, he asked. Her phone, her wallet. I need to secure them. They are in the bag on the chair, the nurse said, pointing to a clear plastic bag in the corner. Hunter nodded. He looked at me. Stay here and don't touch anything, Augustus. I need to go call my lawyer and figure out how to pay for this, since you obviously can't manage it. He grabbed the bag and walked out into the hallway, presumably to find a private spot to call his debts collectors or his mistress. He left the bag on the chair near the door, but took the phone with him. No, wait. He dug through the bag and realized the phone wasn't there. Where is her phone? Hunter snapped. I don't know, the nurse said. Maybe it was left at the house. Hunter cursed under his breath and stormed out. I knew where the phone was. I had slipped it back into the pocket of her dress before the paramedics loaded her up back at the house. I needed to get it. I needed to unlock it again to check for any new messages from Hunter since the ambulance ride. I waited until the nurse turned her back to check the charts. I moved quickly to the small closet where they had hung her red dress. I reached into the pocket. My fingers closed around the cold metal of the phone. I pulled it out. It was locked. I needed her thumb. I moved to the side of the bed. Camilla watched me, her eyes widening in terror. She knew what I was doing. She tried to pull her hand away, but her body wouldn't obey. I am just going to hold your hand, darling, I said, loud enough for the nurse to hear. I grabbed her right hand. It was limp. I squeezed it, feigning affection. I slid the phone under her palm. I pressed her thumb against the sensor. Click. I pulled the phone back and hid it under my jacket sleeve. I stepped back to the chair in the corner and sat down, turning my body away from the nurse. I opened the text thread with Hunter. There was a new message sent 5 minutes ago while we were in the waiting room. The old man is acting weird. He is playing dumb, but something feels off. Did he drink it? Why aren't you answering? If he didn't drink it, we are in trouble. I am going to try to get him sedated. I felt a cold chill. Hunter was smarter than I thought. He was suspicious. He was going to try to neutralize me. I slipped the phone into my own pocket. I would need this evidence later. Just then Hunter came back into the room. He looked agitated. He looked at me sitting in the chair. Nurse Hunter said, his voice tight. I am very worried about him. He is extremely agitated. He was screaming in the waiting room earlier. He thinks people are trying to kill him. I think he needs a sedative, just something to calm him down so I can take him home safely. The nurse looked at me. I was sitting quietly, my hands folded in my lap, staring at the floor. He seems calm now, sir, the nurse said. That is how it starts, Hunter insisted. He goes quiet, and then he snaps. Dr. Evans, his primary care physician, said he needs to be sedated if he has an episode. Please, I don't want him to hurt himself. He was lying. Dr. Evans would never say that. But Hunter was persuasive. He was using his charm, his status, his white male authority to override the reality of the situation. The nurse looked uncertain. "I can ask the doctor," she said. "No," I said softly. They both looked at me. I stood up slowly. I did not scream. I did not argue. I walked over to the bed and kissed Camilla on the forehead. "I am just tired, Hunter," I said. "My wife is sick. I am sad. I do not need drugs. I need prayer." I turned to the nurse. "My son-in-law is very stressed. He has a lot of debts, I mean responsibilities. Please forgive him. He gets anxious when he is not in control." I emphasized the word debts just enough for Hunter to hear it. His eyes narrowed. He heard it. He knew that I knew. Hunter clamped his mouth shut. He could not argue without looking like a monster. I had outmaneuvered him with kindness. "We are leaving," Hunter said, grabbing my arm. "We are going home." I looked at Camilla one last time. "Goodbye, my love," I said. "Rest well." We walked out of the room. Hunter's grip on my arm was bruising. He thought he was taking me to a prison. He thought he was taking me home to control me. He was wrong. He was taking a tiger into his cage, and he forgot to lock the door. The double doors of the waiting room crashed open and my daughter Ebony rushed in. She looked like a storm of grief in a designer coat. Her mascara was running down her cheeks, and her eyes were wild with panic. Seeing her like this broke my heart in a way that Camilla's poison never could. Ebony is 26 years old. She has my eyes and her mother's stubbornness, but tonight she had none of my street smarts. She was vulnerable, and the wolf was already waiting for her. Hunter intercepted her before she could take 3 steps toward me. He moved with the practiced grace of a predator. He opened his arms and caught her, pulling her into his chest. He buried his face in her hair and let out a shuddering breath that was loud enough for the entire room to hear. It was a perfect performance. He looked like a man holding his world together with duct tape in desperation. "Oh, baby, you are here," Hunter sobbed into her ear. "It is a nightmare. It is a complete nightmare." Ebony clung to him, her small hands gripping the back of his jacket. She was shaking. "Where is she, Hunter? Where is Mom? Is she alive? She is stable, but it is bad," Hunter said, pulling back just enough to look into her eyes. He framed her face with his hands, forcing her to focus only on him. He blocked her view of me completely. "The doctors are doing everything they can. But Ebony, you need to prepare yourself. She had a massive seizure. They think it was an overdose." "Overdose," Ebony gasped, pulling away slightly. "Mom does not take drugs. She takes vitamins. She is obsessed with health." Hunter lowered his head. He looked over his shoulder at me, sitting alone in the corner with my cane. Then he looked back at Ebony. His expression was a masterpiece of pained hesitation. "I know, baby. But we think your father might have mixed up the bottles." The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Ebony froze. She looked past Hunter's shoulder. Her eyes found mine. There was no love in them anymore. There was only confusion and a dawning horror. Hunter continued, his voice a low, urgent whisper that carried across the quiet room. "He has been confused lately, Ebony. You know that. We have talked about it. The memory lapses, the shaking hands. Tonight he was insisting on making her drink. He gave it to her. I tried to stop him, but I was too late. He thought it was water, but it wasn't. He was rewriting history in real time. He was taking the truth and twisting it until it strangled me. He was using my feigned frailty as the weapon to destroy my relationship with my only child." Ebony pushed past him. She walked toward me slowly as if I were a bomb that might go off. Her shoes clicked on the cold floor. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to shake her and tell her that her husband was a liar and a thief. I wanted to tell her about the text messages and the debts and the secret family. But I couldn't. Not yet. If I broke character now, she would think I was having a psychotic break. Hunter had already planted the seed of my insanity. Any outburst from me would just water it. So I stayed seated. I let my hands tremble on the head of my cane. I looked up at her with watery eyes. "Ebony, baby," I said, my voice cracking. "I am so glad you are here." She stopped 3 feet away from me. She didn't hug me. She crossed her arms over her chest, protecting herself from me. "Dad," she said, her voice cold. "What did you give her?" I blinked, letting a tear slide down my cheek. Water, I whispered. Just water. We were toasting to the future. Hunter stepped up behind her. He put a hand on her shoulder, claiming her. See, Hunter said softly. He does not even remember. He thinks it was a toast. He is gone, Ebony. His mind is gone. I looked at my daughter. I saw the battle in her eyes. She wanted to believe me. I was her father. I had raised her alone after her mother died. I had braided her hair and taught her to ride a bike and paid for her Ivy League education. But love is blind, and Hunter had spent 2 years binding her eyes with silk ribbons. Ebony, please listen to me, I said, putting a little more strength into my voice. Hunter is lying. The glass was swapped. Camilla tried to hurt me. Ebony flinched. Hunter sighed, shaking his head like a disappointed parent. Okay, Dad, that is enough, Hunter said firmly. Do not blame Camilla. She is lying in a hospital bed paralyzed because of you. Do not try to twist this. Ebony looked at me. Her face hardened. The little girl who used to sit on my lap was gone. In her place was a stranger looking at a nuisance. Dad, stop it, Ebony said. Her voice was sharp. Just stop. You are confused. You are old. You made a mistake. Just admit it. I am not confused, I insisted, leaning forward. Check her phone, Ebony. Check Hunter's phone. Read the messages. Hunter stiffened. I saw his hand twitch toward his pocket. He was nervous. Good. Dad, you are sounding paranoid, Ebony said, stepping back. This is exactly what Hunter was talking about. You are seeing things that aren't there. Why would Mom hurt you? She loves you. She takes care of you. She takes care of my money, I snapped, letting a flash of the real Augustus show through. And so does your husband. That was a mistake. I saw it immediately. Ebony recoiled as if I had slapped her. My sudden sharpness didn't look like clarity to her. It looked like aggression. It looked like the erratic behavior of a dementia patient. Hunter stepped in front of her, shielding her. Do not talk to her like that, Augustus Hunter warned, his voice dropping an octave. You have done enough damage for one night. Ebony peered around him. She looked at me with pity now. Pity and exhaustion. Dad, look at you, she said. You are ranting about conspiracies while your wife is in a coma. You need help. Real help. Hunter said he found a facility that specializes in memory care. Maybe he is right. Maybe it is time. The words hit me harder than any physical blow. A facility. A nursing home. A prison. They wanted to lock me away. They wanted to drug me and forget me so they could spend my millions in peace. And my daughter, my own flesh and blood, was agreeing with them. Ebony, I said softly, my voice pleading, do not do this. He is using you. He has debts, Ebony. Huge debts. Ask him about the gambling. Ask him about the loans. Ebony squeezed her eyes shut. She put her hands over her ears like a child trying to block out thunder. I do not want to hear it, Dad, she screamed. Stop poisoning everything. Hunter loves me. He loves us. He is the only one holding this family together right now. You are the one tearing it apart. She opened her eyes. They were wet and red and full of a terrible resolve. Dad, stop it. Haven't you done enough to Mom? Haven't you done enough to us? The sentence hung in the air. It was the final verdict. She had chosen her side. She had chosen the beautiful lie over the ugly truth. I sat back in my chair. The fight drained out of my face. I let my shoulders slump. I let my head bow. To them, it looked like defeat. It looked like the old man had finally accepted his guilt. Okay, Ebony, I whispered. Okay. Hunter exhaled a long breath. He rubbed Ebony's back, soothing her. It is okay, baby, Hunter cooed. He is calming down now. The doctor gave him something earlier. He just needs sleep. He was lying again. The doctor hadn't given me anything, but Ebony believed him. She leaned into him, drawing strength from the parasite that was killing us both. I watched them. I memorized this moment. I memorized the way Hunter smirked at me over her head when she wasn't looking. I memorized the way Ebony looked at me with disgust. I realized then that I had lost her. The daughter I raised was gone. She was a casualty of war. I could not save her with words. I could not save her with love. I could only save her by destroying the world she thought she lived in. I needed to burn it all down. I reached into my pocket. My hand found my phone. I did not bring it out. I knew the keypad by heart. I knew exactly where the buttons were. I had practiced this for months, ever since I first suspected Camilla. I tapped out a sequence. 3 numbers, then a specific contact. Alexandra Price, my lawyer, my shark. Then I typed 2 words, blindly, by feel, shadow protocol. I hit send. I felt the phone vibrate once, confirming the message was sent. It was done. The gears were turning. Somewhere in a high-rise office in downtown Chicago, a server was activating. Accounts were being frozen. Assets were being moved. Surveillance teams were being deployed. The trap I had spent 30 years building was finally springing shut. Hunter did not know it. Ebony did not know it. They thought they were looking at a broken old man. They did not know they were standing in the center of a target. "Come on," Ebony Hunter said, gently guiding her toward the exit. "You need to go home. You need to rest. There is nothing more we can do here tonight. The doctors will call us if anything changes." "What about Dad?" Ebony asked, looking back at me. Her voice wavered. She still had a conscience, even if it was buried deep. "He will be fine here," Hunter said dismissively. "The nurses are watching him. I will come back for him in the morning once we have the paperwork for the facility ready. He is safer here than at the house. He might hurt himself or burn the place down." Ebony nodded slowly. She looked at me one last time. "Goodbye, Dad," she said. Her voice was hollow. "Goodbye, Ebony," I said. I watched them walk away. Hunter had his arm around her waist, holding her tight, not to comfort her, but to control her. He walked with a bounce in his step. He thought he had won. He thought he had the money, the girl, and the freedom. He thought he was leaving a senile old man to rot in a hospital waiting room. The automatic doors slid shut behind them, cutting off the view. The silence of the waiting room rushed back in. I was alone. I sat there for a long moment. I listened to the hum of the vending machine and the distant murmur of nurses. I let the mask fall. I straightened my spine. I stopped the trembling in my hands. I lifted my head. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who knows exactly where the bodies are buried because he dug the graves himself. "Run home, Hunter," I whispered to the empty room. "Run home and celebrate. Drink my wine, sleep in my bed, count your chickens. Because tomorrow the fox is coming, and he is very, very hungry. The game begins now." The taxi driver looked at me in the rearview mirror with pity. He saw an old man leaning on a cane, staring up at a mansion that looked like a fortress. He did not know that I built this fortress brick by brick. He did not know that I was about to be locked out of my own kingdom. I paid him with a crisp $100 bill and told him to keep the change. I needed to feel like Augustus King one last time before I walked into the humiliation waiting for me. I walked up the long driveway. The rain had started to fall, a cold Chicago drizzle that soaked into my bones. I reached the front door. It was a massive double door made of mahogany imported from Brazil. I reached out to the keypad hidden discreetly inside a brass panel. I punched in the code, 1972. The year I made my first million. The light on the pad flashed red. A harsh electronic buzz rejected me. I tried again. 1972. Red. Denied. He had changed the code. My son-in-law had changed the code to my house before my wife was even cold in her hospital bed. I heard a noise behind me. I turned around. By the service entrance near the garage stood Rosa. She was surrounded by cardboard boxes. She was crying, standing in the rain without an umbrella. Her uniform was soaked. "Mr. King," she sobbed, rushing over to me. "I am so sorry. He made me leave. He said I was stealing silver. He called the security company and told them to escort me off the property." I looked at Rosa. This woman had nursed me through the flu. She had cleaned up after Ebony's parties. She was more family to me than the bloodsuckers inside. "Hunter did this?" I asked, my voice low. "Yes," Rosa said, wiping her eyes. "He said he is the master of the house now. He said he does not need a spy watching him. He changed the locks an hour ago." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a money clip. I handed her everything I had. It was about $2,000. "Take this, Rosa," I said. Go to your sister's house in Pilsen. Do not answer your phone. Do not talk to anyone. Wait for my call." "But Mr. King, where will you go?" she asked, clutching the money. "I am going inside," I said. "I have a key that he does not know about." I sent her away. I walked around to the back of the house to the garden shed. Under a loose stone near the rose bushes was a physical key. I kept it there for emergencies. I never thought the emergency would be a hostile takeover by a man wearing my daughter's wedding ring. I unlocked the back door and stepped into the kitchen. It was silent. The house felt different. It felt violated. I walked into the living room. Hunter was there. He was sitting on my Italian leather sofa, feet up on the coffee table, drinking my 50-year-old scotch straight from the bottle. He looked up when I entered. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed. "How did you get in here, Augustus?" Hunter drawled, slurring his words slightly. I thought I changed the codes. "I used the key, Hunter," I said, leaning heavily on my cane, playing the part of the tired old man. "This is my house." "Not anymore," Hunter said, standing up. He swayed a little. "Ebony signed power of attorney over to me an hour ago. Temporary guardianship until we get you settled in the facility. That means I make the rules. And rule number 1 is that you do not wander around disturbing the peace." He walked over to me. He was tall and broad, but he had soft hands. Hands that had never worked a day in their life. He loomed over me, trying to intimidate me. "You are not staying in the master suite," he said. "The police need to investigate the scene of the crime. That room is sealed." The crime was his, but he was painting me as the villain. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" I asked, keeping my eyes down. Hunter smiled. "It was a cruel, ugly thing. We set up a cot for you in the basement, in the old staff quarters. It is quiet down there. No stairs for you to fall down. It is for your own safety, Dad." The basement. He was putting me in the basement. He wanted to bury me before I was even dead. I looked at him. I wanted to smash my cane across his face. I wanted to break his jaw, but I didn't. I needed him to feel secure. I needed him to think I was broken. "Okay, Hunter," I whispered. "Thank you for keeping me safe." He laughed, a short barking sound. "Yeah, whatever. Just go downstairs and stay there. I have people coming over. Important business." I walked to the basement door. I opened it and stared down into the darkness. The smell of damp earth and old memories hit me. I walked down the steps one by one. I heard Hunter lock the door behind me. Click. I was a prisoner in my own home. The basement room was small and cold. There was a single metal cot in the corner with a thin blanket. It looked like a jail cell. I sat on the edge of the cot and listened. I heard footsteps overhead. I heard Hunter on the phone. He was laughing. He was probably ordering pizza or calling his bookie. I waited. I waited for the house to go quiet. I waited for the whiskey to do its work and put Hunter to sleep. At 2 a.m, the silence was absolute. I stood up. My knees popped, but my resolve was iron. I walked to the basement door. It was locked from the outside. Hunter thought a simple deadbolt could stop me. He didn't know my history. Before I was Augustus King, the real estate tycoon, I was just Gus, the locksmith's apprentice on the south side. I spent 5 years picking locks on foreclosed homes for the bank. I knew tumblers and pins better than I knew the alphabet. I reached into my collar. Sewn into the lining of my jacket was a small set of tension wrenches and picks. I always carried them. Old habits die hard. I slid the tension wrench into the keyhole. I applied a slight pressure. I felt the pins. 1, 2, 3. I raked the pick over them. I felt the feedback in my fingertips. It was a cheap lock. Hunter had probably bought it at a hardware store. Click. The lock turned. I opened the door silently. I crept up the stairs. The house was dark. I moved through the shadows like a ghost. I avoided the floorboards that creaked. I knew exactly where they were. I had memorized the groan of this house over 30 years. I headed for the study, my sanctuary, the place where Hunter was now squatting. The door was closed. I turned the handle. Locked. Of course. I knelt down. I worked the lock again. This one was harder. It was a high-security cylinder. I had installed it myself. It took me 30 seconds. Sweat beaded on my forehead. My heart hammered against my ribs loud enough to wake the dead. Click. I was in. The room smelled of stale smoke and cheap cologne. Hunter had trashed it. Papers were strewn everywhere. My books were pulled off the shelves. He had been looking for something. He had been looking for the wall safe behind the painting of the Chicago skyline. I walked over to the painting. It was crooked. He had found the safe. But he hadn't opened it. He couldn't. It required a biometric scan and a code. He had probably tried to smash it and failed. But I wasn't interested in the safe. I was interested in the papers on the desk. I turned on my small pen light, holding it in my mouth. I shuffled through the mess. There were unpaid bills, notices from the country club, final warnings from credit card companies, and then I found it. It was a thick document hidden under a pile of racing forms. It was a loan agreement, but not from a bank. It was from a private lending firm called Viper Capital. I knew the name. It was a front for the Russian mob in Chicago. I read the terms. $5 million. Interest rate of 20% per month. Collateral, the King estate. He had forged my signature. He had pledged my house, my life's work to a gang of cutthroats to pay off his gambling debts, and the first payment was due in 48 hours. If he didn't pay, they would come for the house. They would come for him, and they would come for Ebony. I took a picture of the document with my burner phone. My hands were shaking with rage. He had sold us out. He had signed our death warrant. Suddenly I heard a noise. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. I froze. I clicked off the pen light. The door handle turned. I dove under the heavy oak desk. I pressed myself into the tight space where my knees used to bang against the wood. The door opened. Light from the hallway spilled in, cutting a yellow rectangle across the carpet. Hunter stepped into the room. He was wearing his boxers and a t-shirt. He held a baseball bat in his hand. "Who is there?" he whispered. His voice was thick with sleep and paranoia. I held my breath. I squeezed my eyes shut. I could hear his breathing. It was ragged. He walked further into the room. His bare feet slapped against the wood. He stopped right in front of the desk. I could see his toes. If he bent down, if he looked under the desk, it was over. I was an old man with a cane. He had a bat and the desperation of a man who owed $5 million to killers. He stood there for 10 seconds, 10 eternities. Then he sighed. "Stupid old house," he muttered. He turned around. He walked out. He closed the door. I stayed under the desk for 5 minutes, waiting for my heart to slow down. I was alive. I had the evidence. I crawled out. I relocked the door behind me. I crept back down to the basement. I lay on the cot, staring at the ceiling. I didn't sleep. I formulated. Hunter thought he was the master of the house. He thought he was playing a game of Monopoly. He didn't know he was playing Russian roulette, and I had just loaded the gun. Tomorrow the lawyer would come. Tomorrow they would try to break me. Let them try. I was Augustus King, and I was ready for war. Sunlight streamed into the dining room, but it felt like a funeral. I sat at the head of the table, my hands trembling on purpose. I let my head droop toward my chest, watching them through half-closed eyes. Hunter sat to my right, looking fresh and victorious. He wore one of my silk ties. Ebony sat opposite me, her eyes red and puffy from a sleepless night. She looked small. She looked broken. A stranger sat next to Hunter. He wore a suit that cost more than my first car but fit him poorly. He smelled of stale tobacco and cheap mints. He introduced himself as Mr. Fletcher. I knew the type immediately. He was an ambulance chaser, a forgery specialist, the kind of lawyer you hire in the back room of a dive bar, not a boardroom. Fletcher opened his briefcase with a dramatic click. He pulled out a thick document bound in blue plastic. It looked official. It had the seal of a private clinic on the South Side, a clinic I knew was famous for selling prescriptions to junkies for cash. "This is it," Ebony Hunter said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. "The results from the emergency tests the hospital ran last night." Fletcher cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "I am afraid it is bad news, Mrs. Vance," he said, his voice oily. "Your father has advanced Alzheimer's disease. Stage 3. The aggression, the confusion, the paranoia about poisoning it all fits the clinical profile. His cognitive decline is rapid and severe." I let my mouth hang open slightly. I stared blankly at a spot on the tablecloth. Inside, my mind was racing. I was memorizing Fletcher's face. I was memorizing his name. He was going to lose his license. He was going to lose his practice. I would make sure he ended up defending parking tickets in traffic court. But Ebony was buying it. She covered her mouth with her hand. A sob escaped her throat. "But he was fine yesterday morning," she whispered. "He was talking about business. He was normal." Hunter reached out and covered her hand with his. "He was masking it, baby." Hunter lied smoothly. "The doctors say the incident with the poison triggered a rapid decline. The trauma broke his mind. He is dangerous, Ebony. To himself. To us. He tried to kill Camilla. If we leave him here, who knows what he will do next. He might burn the house down with you inside." Hunter slid a pen across the mahogany table. It was a Mont Blanc. My Mont Blanc. The one I used to sign the deed to my first building. He was trying to use my own pen to sign my life away. "Sign it," Ebony Hunter said, his voice soft but commanding. "It authorizes the transfer to Shady Pines immediately. They have a bed open today. The ambulance is already on standby. It is the best place for him." Shady Pines. It sounded like a resort. It was a warehouse for the unwanted, a place where old people went to be sedated until they stopped breathing. I knew the place. It was cheap. Hunter wanted me there because it cost pennies compared to the high-end facilities. Every dollar saved on my care was a dollar in his pocket to pay the Russian mob. Ebony picked up the pen. Her hand shook violently. The ink tip hovered over the paper. She looked at me. I looked back. I dropped the blank stare. I didn't look at her with the eyes of a dementia patient. I looked at her with the eyes of the man who held her when she scraped her knee on the playground. The man who sat in the front row of her graduation cheering louder than anyone else. The man who taught her how to negotiate a contract. I needed to break Hunter's spell. I needed to remind her of who we were. We were kings. We did not bow. We did not break. "Ebony," I whispered. My voice wasn't raspy this time. It wasn't weak. It was the deep baritone of her father. "Do you remember what your mother said? On the porch, before she passed." Ebony froze. The pen hovered over the paper. Her eyes widened. Hunter stiffened beside me. He sensed the shift. "Don't listen to him," Ebony Hunter said quickly. "He is rambling. He is confusing memories. Just sign the paper so we can get him help." I ignored him. I kept my eyes locked on my daughter. She said, "Never let a wolf in the henhouse, Ebony." She said, "Protect the family." She said, "Trust your gut, not your ears." Ebony dropped the pen. It clattered onto the table, rolling toward the edge. "I can't do it, Hunter," she said, pushing her chair back. "I can't lock him up. He remembers Mom. He is quoting her. He is still in there." Hunter's face turned purple. The veins in his neck bulged. "He is manipulating you," Ebony Hunter snapped. "That is part of the disease. He mimics emotions. He doesn't know what he is saying." "Pick up the pen." "No," Ebony said, shaking her head. "I want a second opinion. I want Dr. Evans to see him. Not this man. Not this clinic I have never heard of." The silence in the room was shattered by Hunter's fist hitting the table. The coffee cups jumped. The nice guy act was over. The mask disintegrated. The desperation of the $5 million debt was clawing at his throat. He was running out of time. He needed control of my assets today. "Sign the paper," Ebony Hunter snarled. He stood up, looming over her. "We don't have time for this sentimental garbage. The ambulance is 5 minutes away. Do what you are told." Ebony stood up too. She found her spine. She looked like her mother in that moment. Proud, defiant. "No, Hunter," she said, her voice rising. "Not today. Get out of my way. I am taking him to Dr. Evans myself." She turned to leave. Hunter moved faster than I expected. He grabbed her arm. He spun her around. "You stupid little girl," he shouted. And then he did it. He crossed the line that no man crosses in my presence. He raised his hand. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. He slapped her. "My daughter. The princess of my empire." Ebony stumbled back, holding her cheek. She looked at him with shock. The silence that followed was absolute. Hunter stood there breathing hard, realizing his mistake, but too angry to care. That slap was the bell. The round was over. The game was over. The trembling in my hands stopped instantly. I sat up straight. My spine cracked as I locked my posture. I was 6 feet 2 inches of Chicago steel, and I was done playing the victim. I reached out and grabbed the heavy crystal water glass in front of me. I didn't drink from it. I smashed it against the edge of the mahogany table. Shards of glass flew like diamonds. The sound made Fletcher jump out of his skin. He scrambled back his chair, screeching against the floor. Hunter turned to look at me. His eyes bulged. He didn't see a confused old man anymore. He didn't see a victim. He saw a monster. He saw the man who had crushed unions and hostile takeovers for 40 years. I stood up without my cane. I didn't need it. I never needed it. I gripped the jagged shard of the crystal glass in my hand. "You just touched my daughter," I said. My voice was a low rumble of thunder. It filled the room. It shook the walls. "That was your last mistake. Get out of my house before I bury you under it." I walked out of the front door of my own house, and I did not look back. Behind me, the dining room was a ruin of shattered glass and shattered egos. I heard Hunter shouting. I heard Fletcher stammering, but their voices sounded small and distant like rats squeaking in the walls. I did not need a cane anymore. My legs were strong. My back was straight. The adrenaline of the fight had burned away the fog of the last 6 months. I felt 20 years younger. I felt dangerous. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom idled at the curb. The paint gleamed under the streetlights like liquid oil. The back door opened before I even reached it. Alexandra Price stepped out. She is 45 years old, sharp as a razor, and the only lawyer in Chicago I trust with my life. She wore a charcoal suit that cost more than Hunter's entire wardrobe. She looked at me. She did not see a victim. She saw the man who had hired her fresh out of Harvard and taught her how to kill with a contract. "Welcome back, Mr. King," she said, holding out a long wool coat. I shrugged into the coat. It fit perfectly. It smelled of cedar and power. I buttoned it up, covering the old man cardigan I had worn for my performance. "Is everything ready?" I asked, sliding into the leather back seat. "Everything," Alexandra confirmed. "The accounts are locked, the surveillance is live, and we have a notification from the bank. Your son-in-law is heading there right now. He is desperate, Augustus. He needs cash to pay off the mob before midnight." I smiled. It was a wolf's smile. "Take me to the bank," I told the driver. "I want to watch him bleed." The car glided through the Chicago streets. I watched the city pass by. I built half of these skylines. I poured the concrete. I bribed the aldermen. I fought the unions. Did they really think they could take me down with some sleeping pills and a forged signature? It was insulting. We pulled up to the First National Bank on LaSalle Street. It was my bank. I had been their biggest client since the 80s. The branch manager was waiting for us at the private side entrance. He ushered us into his office on the mezzanine level. It had a one-way glass window that looked down over the main lobby. I stood by the window and looked down. It was a stage, and the clown was about to enter. Hunter walked in through the revolving doors. He looked frantic. He was sweating. He kept checking his watch. He marched straight to the VIP teller window, bypassing the line. He slapped a platinum card onto the counter. It was my card, the one he had stolen from my wallet while I was sleeping in the basement. I pressed the button on the intercom in the manager's office so I could hear the audio from the lobby. "I need to make a withdrawal," Hunter demanded, his voice loud and arrogant. 50,000. Large bills. Hurry up." The teller, a young woman named Sarah, looked at the card. She looked at Hunter. She typed something into her computer. I saw her eyes widen. A red alert had just popped up on her screen. It was a code red flag. Stolen card. Identity theft. Do not process. "One moment, Sir," Sarah said, keeping her voice calm. "The system is a little slow today." Hunter slammed his hand on the counter. "I do not have a moment," he shouted. "Do you know who I am? I am Augustus King's power of attorney. This is his money. Give it to me." Sarah didn't flinch. She pressed a silent button under the desk. "Please insert the card into the reader, sir," she said. Hunter shoved the card into the slot. He tapped his foot impatiently. He looked around the lobby. He looked like a cornered animal. The machine whirred. Then it made a mechanical crunching sound. It did not spit the card back out. It swallowed it. Hunter stared at the machine. "What did you do?" he yelled. "Give me my card back." "I cannot do that, sir," Sarah said, stepping back from the glass. "The card has been retained by the bank for security reasons." Hunter's face turned purple. He reached through the window, trying to grab the machine. "Give it to me!" he screamed. That was the cue. 2 uniformed bank security guards stepped out from the back. They were big men, ex-military. They moved fast. One of them grabbed Hunter's arm. The other blocked his path to the door. "Sir, you need to calm down," the guard said. "Get your hands off me," Hunter shrieked. "I am going to sue this bank. I am going to buy this bank and fire all of you. I am Hunter Vance." "You are a thief," I whispered from the balcony above. Suddenly the main doors opened again. This time it wasn't a customer. It was the Chicago Police Department. 2 officers walked in. They didn't have their guns drawn, but their hands were resting on their holsters. "Hunter Vance," one of the officers asked. Hunter froze. The color drained from his face. He looked from the guards to the police. He realized he was surrounded. I can explain." Hunter stammered, his arrogance evaporating instantly. "There has been a mistake. My father-in-law, he is sick. He gets confused. He gave me this card. We have a report of attempted fraud and identity theft," the officer said, taking out a notebook. "We need you to come with us to answer some questions." "Am I under arrest?" Hunter asked, his voice trembling. "Not yet," the officer said. "But you are being detained. Turn around and put your hands behind your back." I watched from the window as they handcuffed him. It wasn't the final arrest. It wasn't the murder charge. It was just a warning shot, a humiliation. They would hold him for 24 hours and then release him pending investigation. But for the next 24 hours he would be in a holding cell. He would miss his payment to the mob. He would be terrified. I took a sip of the sparkling water the manager had poured for me. It was delicious. Let him sit in the cell, I told Alexandra. Let him sweat. When he gets out, he will be desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Meanwhile, across the city, another scene was unfolding. I wasn't there, but I saw it clearly in my mind because I had orchestrated every second of it. In the intensive care unit at Mercy Hospital, Camilla was waking up. She opened her eyes. The room was dim. The rhythmic beeping of the machines was the only sound. She tried to take a deep breath, but her chest felt heavy. She tried to move her hand to scratch her nose. Her hand didn't move. She tried to turn her head. Her neck was stiff as stone. Panic flooded her mind. She tried to scream. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her tongue felt like a dead slug in her mouth. She could only make a low, gargling noise. She was trapped. Her mind was awake, but her body was a prison. The neurotoxin had done its work perfectly. It had induced a temporary state of locked-in syndrome. She could see, she could hear, she could feel pain, but she could not move a muscle. A figure stepped into her line of sight. It was a nurse, but not just any nurse. It was Nurse Davis, the woman whose student loans I had paid off 5 years ago, the woman who owed me a favor. Nurse Davis leaned over the bed. She checked the IV drip. She adjusted the blanket. Her face was kind and professional. Then she leaned closer. Her lips brushed Camilla's ear. "Wakey, wakey, sleeping beauty," Nurse Davis whispered. Her voice was ice cold. Camilla's eyes widened. She stared at the nurse in terror. Nurse Davis smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Mr. King sends his regards," she whispered. "He knows Camilla. He knows about the poison. He knows about the will. He knows about Hunter." He switched the glasses. Camilla's heart monitor began to race. Beep, 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 the sound of pure terror. "He told me to give you a message," Nurse Davis continued, smoothing Camilla's hair. "He said enjoy the silence. Because when you get your voice back, you are going to spend the rest of your life screaming in a cell." Nurse Davis pulled back. She checked the monitor. "Oh dear, your heart rate is elevated," she said loudly for the benefit of anyone passing by. "You need to relax, Mrs. King. You need to rest." She turned off the lights and walked out. Camilla lay in the dark. She was screaming inside her own head. She was screaming for Hunter. She was screaming for help. But no one could hear her. She was alone with her sins. I left the bank and went to my headquarters, the King Tower. 50 stories of steel and glass in the heart of the loop. I took the private elevator to the penthouse office. The office was exactly as I had left it. The mahogany desk, the view of Lake Michigan, the smell of old leather and success. I walked over to the bar. I didn't reach for the water pitcher. I reached for the crystal decanter. I poured 2 fingers of Macallan 25, amber liquid gold. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Chicago lay spread out beneath me, a grid of lights and ambition. I took a sip. The whiskey burned on the way down. It was a good burn, a real burn. I wasn't the frail old man drinking vitamins anymore. I wasn't the victim. I looked at my reflection in the glass. The eyes staring back were hard. They were the eyes of a man who had come up from nothing and wasn't afraid to go back to the mud to fight. Hunter was in a cell. Camilla was in a coma of her own making. But the war wasn't over. Ebony was still out there alone and confused. The mob was still waiting for their money, and there were still loose ends to tie up. I swirled the whiskey in the glass. "You wanted the kingdom, Hunter," I said to the empty room. "You wanted the crown." I took another sip. "Well, heavy is the head that wears it, and I am about to drop the guillotine." The morning sun hit the glass of my penthouse office, but it brought no warmth. I sat behind my desk, looking at a manila folder that contained the destruction of my daughter's heart. My private investigator sat across from me. He was a man of few words and high fees. He did not drink the coffee I offered. He just slid the photos across the mahogany surface. I picked them up. The first photo showed a small suburban house in Dayton, Ohio. It was modest, with peeling paint and a tricycle in the driveway. The second photo showed a woman. She was blonde, tired-looking, wearing a waitress uniform. She was holding the hand of a boy who looked to be about 5 years old. The third photo made my breath hitch in my throat. It was the boy's face in close-up. He had Hunter's nose. He had Hunter's chin. He had the same weak smile. This is Monica, the investigator said, his voice flat. She thinks Hunter is an oil rig engineer who works long contracts overseas. They have been together for 7 years. They have 2 sons. Hunter Jr. is 5. Liam is 3. I stared at the children. My grandchildren. Or at least blood relations that I never knew existed. And the money I asked, not looking up. The investigator nodded. He slid a spreadsheet across the desk. Hunter has been siphoning money from Ebony's accounts for 2 years. He disguised them as investments in a shell company called Future Tech Holdings. Future Tech Holdings is just a bank account in Ohio registered to Monica. He is not just gambling Mr. King. He is supporting a second family with your daughter's inheritance. I felt a cold rage settle in my gut. It was heavy and sharp. Hunter was not just a liar. He was a bigamist in spirit, if not in law. He was playing house with my daughter in Chicago, living in my mansion, driving my cars while keeping a backup life in Ohio. He was using Ebony as his ATM to fund his guilt. Does Ebony know? I asked. The investigator shook his head. No, Monica does not know either. She thinks he is a hero working dangerous jobs to support them. She thinks the money comes from hazard pay. I closed the folder. I had enough. I had the gun. Now I needed to pull the trigger. But I could not just show Ebony these photos. She was in denial. She would say they were faked. She would say I hired actors. She would say anything to protect the illusion of her marriage because admitting the truth would break her. I needed her to see it. I needed her to touch it. I needed the lie to walk through the front door and call her husband Daddy. Get them here, I said. The investigator raised an eyebrow. How? Tell Monica that Hunter has been in an accident, I said, my voice steady. Tell her he is in critical condition in Chicago. Tell her she needs to come immediately to say goodbye. Send a private jet. Make it fast. Make it urgent. But sir, the investigator started. Do it, I snapped. Get them on a plane within the hour. Have a car bring them straight to the mansion. Time their arrival for 6 o'clock. That is when Hunter will be released from the holding cell. I wanted a collision. I wanted a train wreck, and I was going to be the conductor. I spent the rest of the afternoon watching the monitors in my office. I had cameras in every room of the mansion now hidden in smoke detectors and light fixtures. Ebony was pacing the living room. She looked thin. She looked exhausted. She was holding her phone waiting for Hunter to call. She was worried about him. She was worried about the man who was stealing her blind. At 5:30 I left the office. I took the Rolls-Royce back to the house. I did not go inside. I parked down the street in the shadow of a large oak tree. I watched. At 6 o'clock exactly, a black SUV pulled up to the gate. The driver punched in the code I had provided. The gate swung open. The SUV drove up to the front door. I watched on my tablet screen linked to the security cameras. Ebony heard the car. Her face lit up. She thought it was Hunter coming home. She ran to the front door. She threw it open, ready to embrace her husband. Instead, she found a strange woman standing there holding a toddler on her hip with a 5-year-old boy clinging to her leg. Monica looked terrified. She was crying. She was looking past Ebony, expecting to see paramedics or police. Ebony froze. Her smile died. "Can I help you?" Ebony asked, her voice confused. "Where is he?" Monica sobbed. "Where is Hunter?" "Ideally, they told me he was hurt. They told me to come to this address. Is he alive? Please tell me he is alive." Ebony blinked. She stepped back. "Who are you?" Ebony asked. "Why are you asking about my husband?" Monica stopped crying for a second. She looked at Ebony. She looked at the diamond ring on Ebony's finger. She looked at the mansion. "Your husband," Monica repeated. "No. I am looking for Hunter Vance. My husband. The father of my children." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ebony shook her head. She laughed, a short, nervous sound. "You have the wrong house," Ebony said. "Hunter Vance is my husband. We have been married for 2 years. "No," Monica said, stepping forward. Her face hardened. "We have been together for 7. Look." She pulled out her phone. She shoved it in Ebony's face. I zoomed in on the camera feed. The screen showed a photo of Hunter and Monica at Disney World. They were wearing matching shirts. Hunter was holding the baby. It was dated 3 months ago. The same week, Hunter told Ebony he was at a business conference in Denver. Ebony stared at the phone. Her hand went to her mouth. She started to shake. "I do not understand," Ebony whispered. "Daddy, The little boy shouted, pointing at the driveway. Ebony looked up. I looked up. A taxi had just pulled up behind the SUV. Hunter Vance was climbing out. He looked terrible. His suit was wrinkled from a night in jail. He hadn't shaved. He looked angry and tired. He didn't see the SUV at first. He was too busy looking at his phone, probably checking his bank accounts. He walked toward the house. "Ebony, I need you to listen to me," he started shouting before he even reached the steps. "Your father set me up. The bank made a mistake. I am going to sue them." Then he looked up. He saw the open door. He saw Ebony, and then he saw Monica. He stopped dead. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse standing upright. He dropped his phone. It cracked on the pavement. Monica gasped. "Oh, thank God. You are okay." She ran down the steps. She threw her arms around him. The little boy ran after her, hugging Hunter's leg. "Daddy, you are home," the boy squealed. Ebony stood in the doorway. She was frozen. She watched this strange woman hug her husband. She watched a child call him father. The reality of it hit her like a physical blow. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. Hunter stood there paralyzed. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He looked at Monica. Then he looked at Ebony. His eyes were wide with terror. He was trapped. There was no lie big enough to cover this. There was no spin. There was only the brutal, undeniable truth standing on his front lawn. "Get off me," Hunter finally managed to choke out. He tried to push Monica away. Monica stumbled back confused. "Hunter, what is wrong?" she asked. "Why are you acting like this? Who is she?" Hunter ignored her. He looked at Ebony. "Ebony, baby, wait," he pleaded, stepping toward the house. "Let me explain. She is crazy. I don't know her. She is a stalker." "Daddy up," the little boy cried, lifting his arms. Hunter looked down at the child who had his face, the child he had visited 3 months ago. "Get away from me, kid!" Hunter snapped, kicking his leg free. That was it. That was the moment. Ebony let out a scream. It was a primal sound, a sound of pure heartbreak and rage. She ran down the steps. She didn't run to him. She ran at him. She shoved him hard in the chest. "Don't you dare lie to me," Ebony screamed. "Do not lie to me. That is your son. I can see it. He looks just like you." Hunter stumbled back. "Ebony, please, it was before us," he lied. 3 months ago, Ebony yelled, pointing at Monica's phone, which had fallen on the grass. "The photo is from 3 months ago. You were with them. You used my money to take them to Disney World while I was at home working." Hunter looked around wildly. He looked for an escape route, but there was none. I stepped out of the Rolls-Royce down the street. I walked slowly up the driveway, leaning on my cane. I didn't say a word. I just watched. Hunter saw me. His eyes locked onto mine. He knew. He knew I had done this. He knew I had flown them here. He knew I had orchestrated his destruction. "You," Hunter hissed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You did this. You old devil." Ebony turned to look at me. She saw me standing there calm and resolute. She looked back at Hunter. She looked at the crying woman and the confused children. And finally, she saw the truth. She saw the monster I had been trying to warn her about. "Get out," Ebony said. Her voice was quiet, deadly. "Ebony, wait," Hunter started. "Get out," she screamed. "Get off my property. Get away from me. I never want to see you again." Monica was crying now, holding her children, realizing that her life was a lie too. She looked at Hunter with disgust. "You told me you were single," she whispered. "You told me you were doing this for us." "I am doing it for us," Hunter shouted, losing control. "I needed the money. Do you know how much this life costs? Do you know what I have to do to keep you happy?" He admitted it. He admitted it all right there in the driveway. Ebony turned and walked back into the house. She slammed the door. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Hunter was left standing in the driveway with 2 families he had destroyed and the father-in-law who had handed him the shovel to dig his own grave. I walked up to him. I stopped 2 feet away. "You have 5 minutes to leave my property, Hunter," I said softly. "Or I will release the hounds. And I don't mean dogs. I mean the police. I mean the press. I mean the IRS." Hunter looked at me. He looked at the mansion. He looked at the life he had almost stolen. Then he spat on the ground near my shoe. "This isn't over, old man," he growled. "It is for you," I said. He turned and walked away down the dark street alone. Monica and the children stayed in the driveway crying. I signaled for Rosa, who had appeared from the shadows of the garden. "Take them to a hotel, Rosa," I said, pointing to Monica. "Pay for a week. Get them food. Get them tickets back to Ohio when they are ready." I walked up the steps to the front door. I unlocked it. I walked inside. Ebony was sitting on the floor in the foyer, weeping. She looked up when I entered. She looked small and broken. "Daddy," she whispered, "I am so sorry. You were right." I sat down on the floor next to her. I put my arm around her. I didn't say "I told you so." I didn't lecture her. I just held her while she cried for the husband who never existed. The house was quiet. The enemy was gone. But the war had left scars. "Rest now, Ebony," I said, kissing the top of her head. "Tomorrow we rebuild." The silence of the morning was shattered by a phone call that changed the momentum of the war. In the sterile white room of Mercy Hospital, Camilla had found her voice again. It was not the smooth silk voice she used to seduce me. It was a raspy, broken croak like a machine grinding gears, but it was loud enough to be heard. The paralysis had receded just enough for her throat to work, and the first thing she did was scream for the police. She did not ask for water. She did not ask for her husband. She demanded a detective. When the officers arrived, she put on the performance of a lifetime. She lay in that bed looking frail and victimized, tears streaming down her paralyzed face. She told them a story that was almost perfect. She said I had been acting erratic for weeks. She said I had threatened her. She said that on the night of the incident I had forced her to drink a cocktail she knew tasted wrong. She claimed I had smiled as she choked. She claimed I leaned over her and whispered that I was finally free. It was a lie so bold and detailed that the rookie officers believed her immediately. They saw a battered woman and a powerful man, and they made their assumptions. I was sitting in my library reading the morning paper when the doorbell rang. It was not a polite ring. It was the heavy, authoritative pounding of the Chicago Police Department. Rosa opened the door, her face pale. 2 detectives stepped into the foyer. They were not smiling. They did not care about my money or my reputation. They only cared about the accusation of attempted murder. "Mr. King," one of them said, his hand resting near his badge, "we need you to come down to the station. Your wife has made a formal statement. She is accusing you of poisoning her." I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I stood up slowly, buttoning my jacket. I saw Ebony standing on the stairs, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with fear. I gave her a reassuring nod. "Do not worry, darling," I said calmly. "The truth has a way of coming out. Call Alexandra Price. Tell her to meet me at the precinct." They escorted me out to the squad car. The neighbors were watching from behind their curtains. I held my head high. I knew this was coming. Camilla was a fighter. I expected her to strike back, but she did not know that I had been fighting dirty since before she was born. When we arrived at the precinct, Hunter was already there. He was pacing the lobby, looking like a man who had just won the lottery. Someone must have called him from the hospital, probably a nurse he had charmed. He saw me being led in by the detectives, and his face lit up with a sick, triumphant glee. He rushed over, ignoring the officers. "I told you," Old Man Hunter sneered, getting right in my face. "I told you it was over. You thought you could lock me out. You thought you could humiliate me in front of my wife and children. Look at you now. You are nothing but a criminal." He laughed, a harsh barking sound that echoed off the tile walls. Camilla told them everything. Hunter continued, his eyes wild. She told them how you swapped the glasses. She told them how you watched her suffer. "You are going to die in prison, Augustus, and while you rot, I am going to be living in your house, spending your money, raising your grandchild my way." The detectives pushed him back, telling him to stay away. Hunter backed off, but he kept smiling. He pulled out his phone, probably to call his bookie and tell them the money was coming. He thought he had won. He thought the testimony of a victim on a hospital bed was the ultimate trump card. He did not realize he was betting against a man who owned the deck. I looked at him one last time before they led me into the interrogation room. I did not look angry. I looked disappointed. "You really should have checked the living room decor." "Hunter," I said softly. He frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" he asked. But the door closed, cutting off his question. I sat down at the metal table. The room was cold and smelled of stale sweat. I waited. I did not ask for water. I did not ask for a phone call. I just folded my hands and waited for Alexandra. 10 minutes later, Alexandra Price walked in. She looked like a shark in a Prada suit. She carried a slim silver briefcase. She sat down next to me and nodded. She did not look worried. She looked bored. The lead detective sat across from us. He opened a file. "Mrs. King claims you poisoned her drink." "Mr. King," he started. "She says you have been suffering from dementia and paranoia. She says you tried to kill her to stop her from getting you help." I leaned forward. "Did she tell you about the will?" I asked. The detective blinked. "What will?" "The will she forced me to sign 5 minutes before the incident," I said. "The will that gave her control of $236 million. The detective wrote something down. "That is a motive for her, not you," he admitted. "But we have her statement. We have the medical report showing poison in her system. We have witnesses saying you were the one who handed her the glass. It looks bad, Mr. King, unless you have proof that she poisoned herself." I smiled. It was the smile of a man who is about to drop a nuclear bomb. "I do not have proof that she poisoned herself," I said. "I have proof that she tried to poison me." Alexandra opened the silver briefcase. She took out a laptop and a small USB drive. She plugged it in and turned the screen toward the detective. "My client is a man of detail," Alexandra said. "He has many valuable items in his home. Art, gold, cash. Because of this, he has cameras. Many cameras. Most are visible, but some are not." She clicked a file. A video player opened. The image was crisp and high definition. It showed my study from a low angle. It was filming from the shelf of collectibles, specifically from the glass eye of a vintage teddy bear I had bought for my future grandchild. It covered the entire room. The detective leaned in. The video showed Camilla standing at the bar cart. The audio was crystal clear. "I hope this works fast," she muttered to herself on the recording. "I cannot stand another night with this old fool." She pulled a small vial from her bra. She poured a white powder into one of the glasses. She stirred it vigorously. She held it up to the light, checking for sediment. Then she smiled a cruel, twisted smile. She walked over to the desk. The camera followed her. She handed me the glass. "Drink up," she said on the video. "You need your strength." Then the video showed Rosa entering. It picked up Rosa's whisper. It showed the moment Camilla turned away to text Hunter. And it showed my hands moving faster than light, swapping the glasses. The detective watched in silence. He watched Camilla drink the poison she had prepared for me. He watched her fall. He watched me call 911. But the most damning part was the end. Before the ambulance arrived, I had stood over her. But the audio picked up her gargled whispers before she lost consciousness. "You old bastard," she had wheezed. "You switched them." The detective sat back. He let out a long breath. He looked at me with new eyes. He did not see a senile murderer. He saw a survivor. He saw a man who had defended himself against a lethal threat. "This changes things," the detective said. "This changes everything. Is there audio of her admitting the plan?" Alexandra asked. The detective nodded. She admitted to the intent before she poured it, and her reaction confirms she knew which glass was which. "This is attempted murder." He stood up and walked to the door. He opened it and yelled for a uniformed officer. "Release Mr. King immediately," he ordered, "and send a unit to Mercy Hospital. Place Camilla King under arrest. Charge her with attempted murder and conspiracy." I stood up. I buttoned my jacket. I walked out of the interrogation room. Hunter was still in the hallway. He was on the phone, laughing loudly. "Yeah, I know it is perfect," he was saying. "The old man is going down. We are going to have the keys by tonight." He saw me. He saw the detective holding the door for me. He saw Alexandra smiling. He dropped the phone. "What is happening?" Hunter stammered. "Why are you letting him go? He is a criminal." The detective walked up to Hunter. He was a big man and he loomed over my son-in-law. "We saw the video, son," the detective said. "We saw your wife poison the drink. We heard her say she couldn't wait for him to die." Hunter's face went gray. "Video," he whispered. "The teddy bear, Hunter," I said, stopping beside him. "You always hated that bear. You said it was creepy." "You were right. It saw everything." Hunter looked at me with pure terror. He realized the ground had vanished beneath him. Camilla was gone. His ally was gone. And I was standing there free and furious. The detective turned to Hunter. "And we will be looking into your texts with her as well. Conspiracy is a serious charge, Mr. Vance. Do not leave town." I walked past him toward the exit. I heard him breathing fast, hyperventilating. He was alone now. truly alone. I stepped out into the sunlight. The air tasted sweet. I had won the battle for my freedom, but the war for my legacy was not over. Hunter was still standing. He still had access to Ebony. He still had the delusion that he could fight his way out of this. I took out my phone. I dialed my broker. "It is time," I said. "Execute the sell order. Crash the stock." I was going to take the only thing Hunter loved more than himself. I was going to take the money. All of it. Hunter Vance was a man running on fumes and fear. He had lost his wife to a jail cell. He had lost his mistress to the truth. He had lost his dignity in a police precinct. But he still believed he held one card that could save him. He had the power of attorney document that he had bullied Ebony into signing the morning of the intervention. It gave him full control over her assets, and by extension the assets she would inherit if I was incapacitated. He did not know that I was free. He did not know that I was watching. He only knew that he had a $5 million debt to the Russian mob, and the deadline was exactly 2 hours away. He stormed into the lobby of the King Enterprises building. It was the skyscraper I had built with steel and grit in the 90s. He marched past the security desk, waving the forged legal document like a weapon. He took the elevator to the 42nd floor where my private brokerage firm managed the family portfolio. He was sweating. His suit was stained. His eyes were darting around looking for shadows. He looked like a man who knew the executioner was sharpening the axe. "I need to liquidate," he shouted as he burst into the office of my chief financial officer, Michael Sterling. "I need to sell. Sell the tech stocks. Sell the bonds. I need $10 million in cash wired to this offshore account immediately." Michael Sterling is a man of ice. He sat behind his desk and adjusted his glasses. He did not look surprised. "I had called him 10 minutes ago, Mr. Vance," Michael said calmly. "We cannot liquidate those assets." "Do not tell me what you can and cannot do," Hunter screamed, slamming the paper onto the desk. "This is a durable power of attorney signed by Ebony King Vance. I have legal authority. Augustus is mentally incompetent. Ebony is distraught. I am the decision maker. Sell the stocks. Now." Hunter was shaking. He pulled out his phone. He checked the time. He had 90 minutes before the Russians came for his knees. He was terrified. He thought money was the only shield that could protect him. He thought he could strip mine my company and run to a non-extradition country before anyone noticed. He did not realize that he was trying to withdraw water from a dry well. Michael looked at the computer screen. He typed a few keys. He frowned in mock confusion. "I am sorry, Mr. Vance," Michael said. "I see the power of attorney. It appears valid on the surface, but there is a problem with the request." "What problem?" Hunter demanded, his voice cracking. "The assets you are trying to sell," Michael said. "They are not there." Hunter froze. He leaned over the desk, staring at the screen. "What do you mean they aren't there? Augustus King is worth hundreds of millions. I have seen the statements. They were there," Michael agreed. "Until 48 hours ago." Hunter's face went white. "Where did they go?" he whispered. Just then the door to the office opened. Alexandra Price walked in. She was smiling. It was the smile of a shark that smells blood in the water. "Hello, Hunter," Alexandra said. Hunter spun around. "You," he hissed. "Where's the money? Did you steal it? I will have you disbarred." Alexandra laughed. She walked over to the desk and placed a thick leather-bound document next to Hunter's flimsy power of attorney. "We did not steal anything, Hunter. We protected it. You see, Mr. King anticipated that someone might try to take advantage of his family during a health crisis. He is a man of foresight." She opened the document. 24 hours before you tried to have him committed, Mr. King executed a full transfer of assets," Alexandra explained. "He moved the entire King portfolio, the real estate, the stocks, the cash, everything. It was moved into an irrevocable trust." Hunter stared at the document. He tried to read it, but his hands were shaking too hard. "A trust," he mumbled. "But Ebony is the heir. I control Ebony. I control the trust." Alexandra shook her head, slowly enjoying every second of his destruction. "No, Hunter. Ebony is not the beneficiary of this trust. Not directly. The trust is locked. It cannot be accessed by Ebony. It cannot be accessed by you. It definitely cannot be accessed by your creditors." "Then who gets it?" Hunter screamed. "Who gets the money?" Alexandra pointed to a line on the 3rd page. "The sole beneficiary of the King family trust is the firstborn grandchild of Augustus King," Alexandra read aloud. "Specifically the unborn child of Ebony King Vance." The room went silent. Hunter stared at her. He blinked. He looked like he had been hit with a sledgehammer. Child, he whispered. Ebony isn't pregnant. Alexandra raised an eyebrow. Is she not? Hunter looked down at his stomach. He looked at his hands. He tried to do the math. He tried to remember the last time he had even looked at his wife with anything other than calculation. That is a lie, he shouted. You are making this up to lock the money away. There is no baby. This is fraud. I am going to call the police. Go ahead, Alexandra said, but be warned. If you try to access this trust, you are attempting to steal from a minor. That is a federal crime. And since you are the father, you would be stealing from your own child. That looks very bad to a jury, Hunter. Hunter collapsed into a chair. The fight drained out of him. He realized what had happened. I had locked the money in a vault that only his own blood could open, but he couldn't touch the key for 18 years. He was the father of a multimillionaire, but he couldn't buy a sandwich. I do not believe you, he whispered. Ebony would have told me. Maybe she doesn't know yet, Alexandra suggested. Or maybe she just didn't tell you. Hunter put his head in his hands. He began to rock back and forth. He checked his phone again. 1 hour left. The Russians were not known for their patience. He had no money. He had no assets. He had no leverage. He was a dead man, walking. Meanwhile, across town in the quiet sanctuary of my library, Ebony was sitting on the sofa. She held a sealed envelope in her hand. It had been delivered by a courier 10 minutes ago. The return address was from Dr. Evans, my private physician. She opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a blood test result. Ebony read the lines. HCG positive. Approximate gestation, 6 weeks. She dropped the paper. Her hand went to her stomach. She sat there in the silence of the big house. She felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with morning sickness. She was pregnant. She was carrying a life inside her. A life created with a man who had lied to her, cheated on her, and tried to destroy her father. She thought about the nausea she had felt for the last month. She had attributed it to stress. She thought about the fatigue. She had thought it was depression. But it was life. Stubborn, persistent life. She looked at the paper again. Then she saw a handwritten note clipped to the back. It was in my handwriting. Ebony. I knew from the medical reports I receive as part of the family insurance plan. I wanted you to know. This child is innocent. This child is the future. That is why I protected the money. It is not for me. It is for them. You will never have to worry about providing for this baby, but you must protect it from the wolf. Love, Dad. Ebony began to cry. She cried for the baby who would never know its father. She cried for the marriage that was a sham. But beneath the tears, there was a spark of steel. She realized why I had done it all. I wasn't just saving my money, I was saving her child's future. I had built a fortress around the unborn so that Hunter could not drain its life before it even began. She wiped her eyes. She looked at her stomach. I will protect you, she whispered. He will never touch us again. Back in the office, the final act of Hunter's humiliation was beginning. He stood up. He lunged for the computer, trying to force a trade. He was screaming incoherently about wire transfers and offshore accounts. Security Michael Sterling said calmly into his intercom. 2 large guards entered the room. They didn't ask Hunter to leave. They grabbed him. One took his left arm, the other took his right. They lifted him off his feet. Let me go, Hunter shrieked, kicking his legs. I own this company. I am family. You are trespassing, Alexandra said. They dragged him out of the office. They dragged him down the hall past the cubicles of employees who were watching with wide eyes. They dragged him to the elevator. Hunter was crying now. He was begging. Please just give me $50,000, just a loan. I will pay it back. They are going to kill me. The elevator doors closed on his pleas. They took him down to the lobby. They marched him across the marble floor. They threw him out of the revolving doors onto the sidewalk. Hunter landed on his hands and knees. The pavement was wet and cold. Passers-by stopped to look at the man in the expensive suit crawling on the ground. He looked up at the building. He looked up at the 42nd floor. He knew I wasn't there, but he could feel my presence. He stood up. He checked his pockets. His wallet was gone, left in the office during the struggle. His phone was cracked. He had no car keys. He had no cards. He was in the middle of Chicago with nothing but the clothes on his back and a debt that was about to come due. He looked at his phone screen. A text message popped up. Unknown number. Time is up, Mr. Vance. We are coming to collect. Hunter began to run. He ran down the street, pushing people out of his way. He ran without direction. He ran from the ghost of the life he thought he deserved. He had wanted to be a king. Now he was just a peasant with a price on his head. And up in the penthouse, I watched the security feed. I watched him run. "Run, Hunter," I whispered. "Run fast." The payoff was complete. The money was safe. The legacy was secure. And the villain was out in the cold where he belonged. The storm battered the windows of the mansion like 1,000 angry fists demanding entry. I stood in the shadows of the second-floor landing watching the front door. I knew he would come. A rat always returns to the hole where he thinks he left the cheese. Hunter Vance was not just a rat, he was a desperate one. The Russian mob had given him a deadline, and that deadline had passed 3 hours ago. He had nowhere to go. No money, no friends, no future. His only card left was the one he had tried to play from the beginning. My daughter. At 12:15, the glass panel of the side door near the kitchen shattered. The sound was sharp and violent, cutting through the rumble of the thunder. I did not move. I did not call the police. Not yet. I wanted him inside. I wanted him on my turf where the laws of the jungle applied. I heard his wet footsteps on the marble floor. He was breathing hard, panting like a dog. He moved toward the library where a single lamp was left burning. Ebony was there. I had told her to wait there. I had told her to trust me. It was the hardest thing I ever asked her to do. But she sat there on the sofa, her hands over her stomach, protecting the life inside her, waiting for the monster to show his face. Hunter burst into the library. He looked like a nightmare. His expensive suit was torn and soaked with rain and mud. His hair was plastered to his skull. In his right hand he gripped a kitchen knife. It was an 8-inch chef knife he must have grabbed from the counter. It glinted in the lamplight. Ebony screamed. It was a short, terrified sound. She tried to stand up, but Hunter was on her in a second. He grabbed her by the hair and yanked her head back. He pressed the blade against the soft skin of her throat. "Do not move," he hissed. His eyes were wide and bloodshot. "Do not make a sound or I will cut it out of you." Ebony froze. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at the man she had married and saw only a stranger who wanted to kill her. "Where is he?" Hunter shouted, looking around the room wildly. "Where is the old man? Call him. Tell him to come down here. Tell him I want $10 million in bearer bonds or I will kill you and the brat in your belly." He knew about the baby. Of course he knew. He had probably seen the medical reports I sent to Ebony. He was using his own child as leverage. I stepped out of the shadows at the top of the grand staircase. My cane tapped rhythmically on the wood. Tap, tap, tap. "I am right here, Hunter," I said. My voice was calm, carrying easily over the sound of the rain. Hunter spun around, dragging Ebony with him. He pointed the knife at me, then back at her throat. "Give me the money, Augustus," he screamed. "I know you have it. I know you have bonds in the safe. Open it. Open it now or she dies." I walked down the stairs slowly. One step at a time. I did not look afraid. I looked bored. "You are a fool, Hunter," I said. "You think this ends with you getting paid. This ends with you in a body bag or a cell. Those are your only options." I reached the bottom of the stairs. I stood 10 feet away from him. I held up a manila folder in my left hand. "You are looking for a way out," I said. "You want to run. You have a fake passport hidden in your golf bag. You booked a flight to Belize leaving at 3 a.m. Hunter's eyes widened. "How do you know that?" he stammered. "Because I bought the airline, Hunter." I lied smoothly. "And I canceled your ticket." I tossed the folder onto the floor. It slid across the marble, stopping at his feet. "That is your itinerary," I said. "Canceled. You have nowhere to go. The Russians are outside the gate waiting for you to come out. The police are 5 minutes away. And you are in here with me." Hunter looked at the folder, then at me. The desperation in his eyes turned into madness. He tightened his grip on Ebony. She whimpered. "Then I will take her with me," he snarled. "I will use her as a shield. Open the back door. Move." He took a step toward the hallway, dragging Ebony. "Now," I whispered. I reached into my pocket and pressed a button on a small remote. The lights in the mansion died. Total darkness swallowed the room. The only light came from the lightning flashing outside, casting strobe-like shadows through the tall windows. Hunter screamed in surprise. He stumbled. "Run, Ebony," I shouted. Ebony didn't hesitate. She bit Hunter's hand, the one holding her hair. He yelled in pain and loosened his grip for a fraction of a second. She threw her weight forward, breaking free. She scrambled away into the dark, crawling behind the heavy oak desk. Hunter slashed the knife through the air blindly. "Ebony, get back here," he roared. "I moved. I did not run. I knew this house. I built this house. I knew that 3 steps to my left was the entrance to the servants' corridor, a narrow passage that ran behind the walls. I slipped into it and closed the panel silently. Hunter was alone in the dark with a knife and his terror. "I am going to kill you both," he screamed, swinging the knife. "I hear you. I know you are there." I moved through the passage. I came out in the hallway behind him. I picked up a heavy porcelain vase from a side table. I threw it down the hall in the opposite direction. It shattered against the wall. Hunter spun around toward the sound. "There you are," he yelled, charging toward the noise. I slipped back into the shadows. I was hurting him. I was pushing him toward the foyer, toward the grand entrance where the floor was marble and slippery from the rain he had tracked in. He ran past me, breathing like a steam engine. He was swinging the knife at curtains, at shadows, at ghosts. "Come out and fight me, old man," he taunted. "Are you scared? Are you hiding in your basement again?" I stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the foyer. A flash of lightning illuminated him, standing in the center of the room, spinning in circles. He looked small. He looked pathetic. "I am not hiding, Hunter," I said, my voice echoing from above. "I am hunting." Hunter looked up. He saw my silhouette against the lightning. "I am coming up there," he screamed. "I am going to cut your heart out." He ran for the stairs. This was it. The trap was set. The main staircase of the King Mansion was a masterpiece of engineering. But it had a feature I had installed years ago for security. The carpet on the stairs was not tacked down. It was held by magnetic strips. Hunter charged up the stairs, taking 2 at a time, knife raised. When he reached the middle landing, I pressed the second button on my remote. The magnets released. The carpet slid. Hunter's feet went out from under him. He fell hard, his chin slamming against the stone step. The knife skittered out of his hand and clattered down to the floor below. He slid down the stairs, entangled in the heavy wool runner, landing in a heap at the bottom. He groaned, trying to stand up. He was dazed. His nose was bleeding. I walked down the stairs, slowly stepping over the carpet. I picked up the knife. I folded it into my pocket. I stood over him. "You broke into my house," I said. "You threatened my daughter. You tried to steal my legacy, and you did it all wearing my shoes." Hunter looked up at me. His eyes were full of hate, but also fear. He tried to crawl backward, crab-walking across the marble. "You are crazy," he wheezed. "You are a psychopath." "I am a father," I corrected him. "And you threatened my child." He scrambled to his feet. He was hurt, but he was young and desperate. He lowered his shoulder and charged at me. He thought he could tackle me. He thought he could break my old bones. He didn't know about the cane. My cane was not just a piece of wood. It was a custom-made taser disguised as a walking stick. I had carried it since the 80s. I raised the cane. I didn't swing it. I thrust the tip forward, aiming for his chest. Hunter collided with the metal tip. I pressed the trigger hidden in the handle. 50,000 volts of electricity surged through him. Hunter convulsed. His eyes rolled back. His body went rigid, then limp. He collapsed onto the floor, twitching. The smell of ozone mixed with the smell of wet wool. I stepped back, leaning on the cane again. "Stay down," I said. But Hunter was resilient. Or maybe just too stupid to quit. He groaned, shaking his head. He tried to push himself up. His hand fumbled for the vase on the table next to him. He grabbed it. He raised it, ready to throw. I braced myself. I was tired. My heart was hammering. Suddenly a shadow moved from the kitchen doorway. It was Rosa. She moved with a speed that defied her age. She held a heavy cast-iron skillet in her hand. She didn't say a word. She didn't hesitate. She stepped up behind Hunter just as he was about to throw the vase. She swung the skillet with both hands like she was batting for the Cubs. Clang! The sound was sickeningly solid. The skillet connected with the back of Hunter's head. Hunter dropped like a stone. He didn't twitch this time. He just lay there face down on the marble. Rosa stood over him, breathing hard, clutching the skillet to her chest. She looked at me. Her eyes were wide but fierce. "He fired me," she said simply. I looked at her. I looked at the unconscious man on the floor. I looked at Ebony, who was peeking out from the library door, trembling. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in months. "You are rehired, Rosa," I said, with a raise. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. The blue and red lights began to dance across the walls. The police were here. The nightmare was ending. I walked over to Ebony. I held out my arms. She ran to me, burying her face in my coat. She was shaking uncontrollably. "It is over, baby," I whispered, stroking her hair. "The wolf is dead." We stood there in the foyer of my fortress. The storm raged outside, but inside the only sound was the steady beating of our hearts. The usurper was fallen. The queen was safe, and the king had reclaimed his throne. But as the police pounded on the door, I knew there was one more thing to do. One final lesson to teach. Hunter groaned on the floor, starting to wake up. I looked down at him. "Don't worry, Hunter," I whispered. "The Russians are still waiting, and prison walls aren't thick enough to keep them out." I opened the door to let the law in, and to let the garbage out. The house was silent for 3 days. Not the peaceful silence of a library, but the heavy, suffocating silence of a crypt. Hunter was gone, dragged away in handcuffs, his screams fading into the night. The physical threat was neutralized, but the psychological shrapnel remained embedded deep in the walls of my home. Ebony had locked herself in her childhood bedroom. She refused to come out. She refused to eat. She refused to look at me. I stood outside her door, holding a tray of soup that had gone cold for the 3rd time. I could hear her inside. She wasn't sleeping. She was pacing. Sometimes I heard a stifled sob. Sometimes I heard the sound of things breaking. She was destroying the photos of her wedding. She was tearing up the life she thought she had. I knocked gently. "Ebony, baby." "Please eat something," I said, my voice low. "Go away, Dad," she shouted back. Her voice was hoarse. "I cannot look at you. Please, just go away." She was not angry at me. She was angry at herself. She was drowning in guilt. She felt complicit. She had let the wolf in. She had defended him. She had almost signed the papers that would have locked me away. Every time she looked at my face, she saw her own betrayal. She could not forgive herself, so she punished herself with isolation. I knew this pain. I had felt it when her mother died. I had felt it when I realized I was too busy building an empire to save my marriage. Guilt is a parasite. It eats you from the inside out if you let it. I could not let her rot in that room. I had to break the cycle. I had to show her that she was not the villain of this story. She was the victim. And to do that, I had to show her the face of true evil. I took a key from my pocket. It was the master key to every room in the house. I unlocked her door. Ebony was sitting on the floor, surrounded by shredded paper and broken glass. She looked up at me with wild red eyes. She looked like a ghost of the vibrant girl she used to be. "I told you to go away," she whispered. "Get up, Ebony," I said firmly. "Put on your coat. We are going for a ride." She shook her head. "I am not going anywhere. I am never leaving this room." "You are coming with me," I said, stepping over the debris. "I am not asking you. I am telling you. There is one last thing you need to see. One last truth you need to face before you can heal." I pulled her up. She was weak. She stumbled. I held her steady. I walked her down the stairs and out to the car. She did not fight me. She was too tired to fight. She sat in the passenger seat, staring blankly out the window as I drove us toward the edge of the city. We arrived at the Cook County Jail Infirmary. It was a bleak concrete building surrounded by razor wire and gray skies. Ebony looked at the building and then at me. Fear flickered in her eyes. "Why are we here?" she asked. "To see the architect of our misery," I said. I led her through the security checkpoints. The guards knew me. They knew why I was there. They led us to a secure room with a glass partition. On the other side of the glass sat Camilla. She was in a wheelchair. The poison and the stroke had left her twisted. Her face was pulled down on the left side. Her arm was curled against her chest like a dead bird. She looked old. She looked broken. But her eyes were still the same. They were sharp, black beads of pure malice. Ebony gasped when she saw her. She put a hand to her mouth. "Mom," she whispered. Camilla's head snapped up. She saw us. She didn't look ashamed. She didn't look sorry. She smiled a crooked, leaking smile that sent a chill down my spine. "Look who it is," she rasped, her voice slurred but understandable. "The old fool and the little princess. Did you come to gloat, Augustus?" I sat down and gestured for Ebony to sit next to me. Ebony sat on the edge of the chair, trembling. "We didn't come to gloat, Camilla," I said. "We came for closure. Ebony blames herself. She thinks she failed us. I want you to tell her the truth." Camilla laughed. It was a wet, hacking sound. She looked at Ebony with a gaze that was completely devoid of maternal instinct. "You blame yourself," she sneered. "You stupid girl. Of course you failed. You were always so easy to manipulate." Ebony flinched as if she had been slapped. "Why did you do it?" "Mom," Ebony asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Why did you try to hurt Dad? I thought you loved him." "Love," Camilla spat the word out like it was poison. "I never loved him. I loved the lifestyle. I loved the penthouse. I loved the credit cards. But him, he was just a boring, stubborn old man who took too long to die." Ebony began to cry, silent tears rolling down her face. "But you were so nice to me," she said. "You helped me plan my wedding." "You listened to me." Camilla rolled her eyes. "I was nice to you because you were the key, Ebony. You were the weak link. Hunter saw it too. We laughed about it. You were so desperate for approval, so desperate for a mother figure after yours died. It was pathetic, really. All I had to do was buy you a few dresses and compliment your hair, and you were eating out of my hand." I watched Ebony's face. I saw the shock turn to horror. This was the medicine she needed. It was bitter. It was agonizing. But it was the only thing that would burn out the infection of her guilt. She needed to see that she hadn't betrayed me out of malice. She had been groomed by a master predator. We planned it all. Camilla continued enjoying the pain she was causing. "Hunter would marry you. I would marry Augustus. We would isolate you both. We would make you think you were crazy. And then we would take it all. The only mistake I made was underestimating your father. I should have used a stronger dose. I should have killed him in his sleep instead of trying to be clever with the water." Ebony stood up. Her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Her hands were clenched into fists. She was shaking, but this time it wasn't from weakness. It was from rage. "You are a monster," Ebony said. Her voice was strong. "I loved you. I trusted you. You were a tool," Camilla hissed, leaning forward against the glass. "A means to an end. And now look at you, pregnant with a con man's baby. Alone, broken. You are nothing, Ebony. You are just a rich girl with a broken heart." I stood up then. I placed my hand on the glass right over Camilla's face. "That is enough," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You have said what you needed to say." Camilla looked at my hand. She looked at me. For a second, the fear came back into her eyes. She remembered who put her in that chair. "You won this round, Augustus," she muttered, "but you will always have to sleep with one eye open." I leaned in close. "I don't sleep, Camilla," I said. "I watch. And you will rot in this cell until the day you die. And I will make sure it is a very long, very slow rot." I turned to Ebony. "Let us go," I said. "We are done here." Ebony nodded. She turned her back on the woman she had called Mom for 5 years. She walked out of the room without looking back. We walked out of the prison and into the parking lot. The sky was gray, but the air felt clean. We got into the Rolls-Royce. I told the driver to take us home. We sat in silence for a few miles. Ebony was staring out the window, watching the city pass by. I gave her space. I let the truth settle in her mind. She wasn't stupid. She wasn't bad. She had been hunted. Suddenly, Ebony made a sound. It was a small, choked sob, then another. And then she broke. She turned to me and buried her face in my shoulder. She cried like she hadn't cried since she was a child. She wailed. She let out all the fear and the shame and the anger.
"I am so sorry, Daddy,"
she sobbed, clutching my coat. "I am so sorry. I should have listened. I should have known." I wrapped my arms around her. I held her tight. I rocked her back and forth. "It is okay, baby," I whispered. "It is okay. You didn't know. They were experts. They fooled everyone. But they didn't beat us." She pulled back and looked at me. Her face was a mess of tears, but her eyes were clear. The fog was gone. "You saved me," she said. "You saved my life. You saved my baby." I wiped a tear from her cheek with my thumb. "I will always save you, Ebony," I said. "That is my job. I am your father. Nothing gets past me." She sniffled and managed a weak smile. "Even Hunter?" she asked. "Especially Hunter," I said. "He is gone, Ebony. He is never coming back." She nodded. She took a deep breath. She placed her hand on her stomach. "I am going to keep the baby," she said softly. "I know," I said, "but I don't want him to be like Hunter," she said, fear creeping back into her voice. "What if he is like him?" "He won't be," I promised. "Because we are going to raise him. You and me. And Rosa. We are going to teach him to be a king. We are going to teach him honor. We are going to teach him that family is not about who you use, it is about who you protect. Ebony leaned her head on my shoulder. I love you, Dad, she whispered. I love you too, baby, I said. The car glided down the highway, carrying us away from the prison and back to the fortress. The war was over. The casualties were heavy, but the core remained. We were damaged, but we were together. And as I looked out at the skyline I built, I knew that we would rebuild this too. We would build it stronger. We would build it bulletproof. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 6 months, I let myself rest. Just for a moment. Because tomorrow there was still one debt left to collect, and the Russian mob was waiting. 3 days later, the final guest arrived at my front door. He did not knock, and he did not wait to be invited. My security system buzzed at 8 o'clock in the evening. The camera showed 3 black SUVs blocking the driveway. I did not call the police. I did not lock the doors. I told Rosa to set an extra place at the dining table. I had been expecting this visit. When you chop off the head of a snake, the body still thrashes, and Hunter had left a very large thrashing tail behind him. The front door opened. 3 men walked into my foyer. 2 of them were the size of refrigerators, wearing suits that struggled to contain their muscles. The third man was smaller, older, and dressed in a tailored Italian suit that cost more than most people earned in a year. He had silver hair and eyes like chips of flint. This was Nikolai Volkov, the man who ran the underground lending market in Chicago, the man Hunter owed $5 million. Mr. King, Volkov said, his voice thick with a Russian accent. You have a nice home. It would be a shame to burn it down. I stood at the top of the stairs, leaning on my cane. I did not look intimidated. I looked like a host greeting an old friend. Good evening, Nikolai, I said, descending the stairs slowly. I trust the traffic was not too bad. Dinner is just being served. I hope you like ribeye. Volkov narrowed his eyes. He was used to fear. He was used to people begging or running. He did not know what to do with hospitality. I am not here for dinner, Augustus, he said, stepping forward. I am here for my money. Your son-in-law borrowed $5 million. He put this house up as collateral. He did not pay. Now I own this house. He pulled a folded document from his pocket. It was the loan agreement with my forged signature. I reached the bottom of the stairs. I stopped 3 feet from him. That document is a forgery, Nikolai, I said calmly. Hunter Vance did not have the authority to sign it. The house is in a trust. He scammed you just like he scammed me. Volkov shrugged. That is not my problem. The money is gone. Someone has to pay. If he cannot pay, you will pay. Or my men will take payment in blood. Your daughter is very pretty. It would be tragic if she had an accident. The threat hung in the air, heavy and toxic. My body went rigid, but I forced myself to relax. I needed him to think I was negotiating from a place of business, not emotion. You are a businessman, Nikolai said, gesturing toward the dining room. So am I. Violence is bad for business. It brings police. It brings heat. Money is what matters. Come, sit. Let us discuss a transaction that will make $5 million look like pocket change. Volkov stared at me. He looked at his muscle men. Then he nodded. 5 minutes. Augustus. If I do not like what I hear, we burn it all. We sat at the long mahogany table. Rosa brought out the steaks. She poured the wine. Her hands were steady. She was a warrior. Volkov did not eat. He watched me cut my meat. You have 3 minutes left, he said. I put down my knife and fork. I reached into my jacket pocket. The bodyguards tensed, reaching for their guns. I moved slowly. I pulled out a rolled-up map. I spread it on the table between the wine glasses. It was a zoning map of the South Side Industrial District. It was covered in red lines and notes. Do you know what this is? I asked. Volkov glanced at it. A map of garbage, warehouses, rats, nothing. It is the future, I corrected him. Next month, the city council is going to announce the expansion of the Blue Line train. The new terminal is going to be built right here. I pointed to a large block of derelict factories. The city needs this land, I continued. They have allocated $200 million for eminent domain purchases. But right now that land is owned by a shell company that is going bankrupt. They are desperate to sell. They are asking for $2 million. Volkov looked at the map. He looked at me. The greed in his eyes began to replace the anger. How do you know this? He asked. Because I own the construction company that won the bid to build the station. I lied smoothly. The contract hasn't been announced yet. It is insider information, Nikolai. It is gold. I tapped the map. If you buy that land tomorrow for $2 million, you can sell it to the city next month for $20. That is an $18 million profit. That covers Hunter's debt almost 4 times over. Volkov was doing the math in his head. He was a predator, but he was also a capitalist. He knew a good deal when he saw one. Why give this to me? He asked suspiciously. Why not buy it yourself? Because I cannot be seen profiting from a project I am building, I said. Conflict of interest. The feds watch my accounts, but they do not watch yours. Volkov sat back. He picked up his wine glass. He took a sip. So this is the deal, he said. You give me the intel. I forgive the $5 million debt, and the house stays yours. Exactly, I said. And Hunter Vance, he asked. What about him? I picked up my knife again. I cut a piece of steak. It was rare red and juicy. Hunter Vance is no longer my problem, I said, chewing slowly. The debt is forgiven as far as I am concerned. But he still disrespected you. He still tried to steal from you. I assume a man of your reputation cannot let that slide. Volkov smiled. It was a terrifying sight. His gold tooth glinted in the chandelier light. No, he agreed. Respect must be maintained. Then consider him a bonus, I said. Do with him what you will. Just keep him away from my family. Volkov stood up. He picked up the map. He folded it and put it in his pocket. Pleasure doing business with you, Augustus. He walked out. His men followed. The front door closed. I sat alone in the dining room. I took a sip of wine. I had just traded a piece of paper for my life and the safety of my daughter. The map was real. The intel was real. I had lost a potential profit, but I had gained peace. It was a fair trade. Meanwhile, in the cold, concrete belly of the Cook County Jail, Hunter Vance was learning the true cost of his ambition. He was sitting on a metal bunk in a holding cell surrounded by men who had nothing to lose. He had been denied bail because of the flight risk. He had no lawyer because his accounts were frozen. He was alone. The cell door buzzed open. A guard stepped in. He didn't look at Hunter. He looked at the other inmates. Everybody out, the guard said, except Vance. The other prisoners filed out smirking. They knew the drill. When a guard clears a cell, it means someone has paid for a private session. Hunter stood up. He looked at the guard. What is going on? Hunter asked, his voice trembling. My lawyer is coming right. I get a phone call. The guard stepped out and closed the door. He locked it. He turned his back to the bars and crossed his arms. Then 3 new men walked into the block. They weren't guards. They were inmates, but they wore their uniforms differently. They walked with authority. They had tattoos on their necks that marked them as soldiers of the Volkov organization. They stopped in front of Hunter's cell. Hunter backed up until he hit the wall. Please, he whimpered. I can pay. My father-in-law has money. Just let me call him. The biggest of the 3 men smiled. He reached through the bars. He held up a piece of paper. It was a receipt. Your debt has been settled, the man said. Mr. King paid the interest. Hunter let out a breath of relief. He slumped against the wall. Oh, thank God, he said. I knew he wouldn't let me die. I knew it. The man laughed. It was a dry, cruel sound. He paid the money, the man corrected. But he didn't pay for your safety. He said the rest of the debt, the disrespect part, you have to pay that yourself. Hunter's eyes widened. What do you mean? He whispered. The man signaled to the guard. The guard pressed a button. The cell door slid open. The 3 men walked in. They cracked their knuckles. They didn't have weapons. They didn't need them. Mr. Volkov sends his regards, the man said. He says you have a very pretty face. It would be a shame if it changed. Hunter screamed. He screamed for the guard. He screamed for me. He screamed for Ebony. But no one came. The guard whistled a tune and walked down the hall. The screams echoed off the concrete walls, and then they turned into wet thuds and whimpers. I sat in my dining room finishing my steak. I poured a second glass of wine. I did not feel guilt. I did not feel pity. Hunter had made his bed. Now he had to lie in it. He would survive. Volkov wouldn't kill him. Death was too easy. He would live. But he would live as a broken man. He would spend the next 10 years in prison looking over his shoulder, afraid of every shadow. He would never walk straight again. He would never hold a pen without his fingers trembling. He had tried to take my life. I had simply returned his to him with interest. I raised my glass to the empty room. To family, I whispered, and to the ones who protect it. The storm outside had stopped. The moon was breaking through the clouds. It was a new night. The house was safe. The debt was paid, and Augustus King was still standing. I sat in the conference room with Alexandra Price, and on the table lay the document that almost cost me my life. It was the will Camilla had forced me to sign just days ago. The paper felt heavy and expensive in my hands, but it was worthless now. I did not use a shredder because I wanted to feel it break. I used my hands. I tore it down the middle. The sound of ripping paper was better than any symphony I had ever heard. I tore it again and again until it was nothing but a pile of confetti on the mahogany table. Alexandra watched me with a small, knowing smile. She knew what was coming next. "We are starting over, Alexandra," I said, brushing the paper dust from my hands onto the floor. "Draft a new one. But this time we are not leaving loopholes. We are building a fortress." Alexandra opened her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keys ready for my command. "What are the terms, Augustus?" she asked, her eyes sharp. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the ceiling. I thought about Hunter and the way he had smelled opportunity on my daughter. I thought about the way money had attracted wolves to my door. I thought about Ebony, helpless and blind in her tower of gold. I needed to inoculate her against the disease of greed. I needed to make sure that no one ever married her for a payday again. "Write this down," I said, my voice steady. "The entire estate remains in the irrevocable trust. The beneficiary is my grandchild, but access is restricted until the child turns 30 years old." Alexandra typed furiously, the keys clacking in the silent room. "And Ebony?" she asked, looking up. I took a deep breath. This was the hard part. This was the part that would test her resolve and mine. "Ebony gets nothing," I said. Alexandra stopped typing. She looked at me to make sure she heard correctly. "Nothing," she repeated. "Not a single cent," I confirmed. "No allowance, no trust fund payouts, no access to the black cards. She gets a roof over her head in my house if she wants it. She gets medical care for the baby because that is my blood. But cash is zero." Alexandra nodded slowly, understanding the logic. It was the nuclear option. It was the only way to strip the target off my daughter's back. If she had no money, she had no predators. "But she needs to survive," Augustus, Alexandra said, playing devil's advocate. "She has never worked a day in her life." I smiled, a hard, grim smile. "Then it is time she started. Add a clause. The King Employment Initiative. She can work for the company, but she starts at the bottom, minimum wage. No special treatment. If she wants money, she earns it. If she wants a promotion, she earns it. And if she quits, she is on her own." Alexandra typed it out. "It is harsh, Augustus," she said. "It is love," I replied. "It is the only kind of love that saves you. Print it." That evening I called Ebony into the library. She looked different. The stress of the last week had stripped away the spoiled girl and left a woman who looked tired but awake. She sat down across from me, her hands resting on her stomach, instinctively protecting the life growing there. I slid the new will across the desk. It was thick. It was heavy. It was the new law of the land. "Read it," I said. Ebony opened the folder. She began to read. I watched her face closely. I waited for the anger. I waited for the tears. I waited for her to scream that it wasn't fair, that she was raised in luxury and deserved to be taken care of. I expected a fight because that is what money usually does to people. She read the first page. She read the clause about the trust being locked until the baby was 30. She read the section disinheriting her from direct cash flow. She read the employment clause. She flipped the page and read it again. The silence stretched out in the room. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly, marking the seconds of her new life. Finally, she closed the folder. She looked up at me. Her eyes were dry. She didn't look angry. She looked relieved. "You cut me off," she said softly. "Completely." I nodded. I did. "You are worth nothing on paper, Ebony. You are a poor woman with a rich father. No one will ever date you for your money again because you don't have any. If someone loves you now, they love you for you." She ran her hand over the leather cover of the document, feeling the weight of it. "And the job?" she asked. "Entry level," I said. "Mail room, reception, data entry. Whatever is open. You punch a clock. You answer to a manager. If you are late, you get written up. If you are lazy, you get fired. And your last name buys you nothing." Ebony took a deep breath. She looked around the library at the books she had never read and the empire she had never understood. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. It wasn't the smile of a princess. It was the smile of a survivor. "Thank you, Dad," she said. I blinked, surprised. "Thank you," I asked. She nodded. "For saving me from myself. I don't want the money, Dad." The money brought Hunter. The money brought Camilla. The money made me weak. I want to be strong. Like you. I want to know that if I eat dinner, I paid for it. I want to know that I can take care of this baby without needing a handout. I leaned forward, looking at my daughter with new respect. "It will be hard, Ebony. You will be tired. Your feet will hurt. People will treat you like a servant." "Good," she said firmly. "Let them. I need to wake up. I have been sleeping for 26 years. She picked up the pen. She didn't hesitate. She signed the document. Ebony King. The signature was firm and clear. She pushed the papers back to me. "When do I start?" she asked. I looked at my calendar. "Tomorrow is Monday," I said. "Be in the lobby at 8 a.m. Don't be late." The next morning at 7:45, I sat in my car parked across the street from the King Tower. I watched the front entrance through tinted windows. The morning rush was in full swing. Employees were streaming in, holding coffee cups, checking phones, rushing to beat the clock. Then I saw her. Ebony was walking down the street. She wasn't wearing her usual Chanel suit. She was wearing a simple gray skirt and a white blouse she had probably bought at a department store sale over the weekend. She wasn't carrying a Birkin bag. She had a practical canvas tote bag over her shoulder. She stopped at the revolving doors. She looked up at the building, 50 stories of steel and glass that bore her name. But today she didn't own it. She was just a cog in the machine. She took a deep breath. She squared her shoulders. She stepped into the revolving door and pushed. I watched her enter the lobby. I saw her walk up to the security desk. She didn't wave a VIP pass. She waited in line behind a courier. When she got to the front, she spoke to the guard. He handed her a temporary badge. It was a white plastic rectangle. Visitor. Intern. She clipped it to her blouse. It looked cheap against the fabric, but to me it looked like a medal of honor. She walked to the elevators. She didn't go to the private executive lift that went straight to the penthouse. She squeezed into the crowded main car with the accountants and the secretaries and the janitors. The doors closed, swallowing her into the belly of the beast. I sat there for a long moment. My throat felt tight. I was proud. Prouder than the day she graduated. Prouder than the day she was born. She was finally becoming a king. Not by blood, but by sweat. I signaled the driver. "Take me to the golf course," I said. "I think I'm going to take the morning off." I knew the company was in good hands, not today. Maybe not tomorrow, but someday. Because the girl in the gray skirt wasn't just working for a paycheck, she was working for her soul. And that was an asset that could never be liquidated. The dining room smelled of roasted garlic and rosemary instead of fear and betrayal. It had been exactly 1 year since I watched my wife convulse on the floor of my study. 1 year since the glass switch that saved my life. Tonight, the long mahogany table was not a battlefield. It was just a table. I sat at the head, but I did not feel like a general commanding troops. I felt like a grandfather. My daughter Ebony sat to my right. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her hands were rougher now, calloused from filing papers and carrying boxes in the mailroom. She wore a simple sweater, not the couture silk she used to favor. She looked beautiful. She looked real. In her arms, she held my grandson. His name is Leo. He is 3 months old, and he has my chin and his mother's eyes. He was sleeping soundly, oblivious to the war that had been fought to secure his future. Rosa walked in from the kitchen. She was not wearing a maid's uniform. She was wearing a sharp navy suit. I had promoted her 6 months ago. She was no longer just the housekeeper. She was the estate manager. She ran the staff. She managed the household budget. She was the gatekeeper. No one entered this house without getting past Rosa first. She placed a large platter of lamb in the center of the table. "Mr. King, the new gardener, is asking about the rose bushes," Rosa said, taking her seat at the table with us. "I told him to wait until spring. The roots need time to heal." I nodded. "Good call, Rosa. You know this house better than anyone." Ebony shifted Leo to her other shoulder. "Dad, I got my performance review today," she said. Her voice was proud. "My manager said I am the fastest sorter in the department. He recommended me for a promotion to junior analyst." I smiled. I did not give her that job. I did not make that call. She earned it. "That is excellent news, Ebony," I said. "Did you tell him who your father is?" "No," she said quickly. "He still thinks my last name is Vance. I kept Hunter's name on my employment file so no one would treat me differently." "Good," I said. "Keep it that way. Let them respect the work, not the name." We ate in peace. The only sounds were the clinking of silverware and the soft breathing of the baby. It was a simple dinner. It was the most expensive meal I had ever eaten because the price I paid for it was everything I had known before. I looked around the room. The shadows were gone. The ghosts were gone. But I knew they were not far away. They were rotting in the places I had sent them. My mind drifted back to the phone call I received last week. It was from the warden at the state penitentiary. "Mr. King," the warden had said, "I thought you should know. Inmate 8940 passed away this morning, Camilla. She died alone in her cell. The autopsy said it was a massive stroke. Her body finally gave up on the prison she had made for herself. She had spent her last months paralyzed in a wheelchair, unable to speak, unable to move, staring at a concrete wall. The nurses said she used to scream at night, but since she had no voice, it was just a silent, open-mouthed agony. She died as she lived, bitter, cold, and empty. I did not claim the body. I told the warden to bury her in the state cemetery with a numbered marker. She did not deserve the King name on her tombstone. She was erased, a footnote in the ledger of my life. And then there was Hunter. I went to see him once, just once. It was 3 months ago. He was not in a regular prison. He was in the state medical facility for inmates. The Russian mob had been thorough. They did not kill him because death is a release. They broke him. He was in a wheelchair in the recreation yard. He sat facing the fence. He was drooling slightly. His hands, the hands that had forged my signature and held a knife to my daughter's throat, were twisted and scarred. He had suffered a traumatic brain injury during his welcoming party in the jail showers. I stood behind him. "Hello, Hunter," I said. He turned his head slowly. It took him a long time to focus. When he saw me, a flicker of recognition passed through his cloudy eyes. Then terror, pure, primal terror. He tried to wheel himself away, but his arms were too weak. He started to cry. It was a high, thin sound like a wounded animal. I did not say anything else. I just looked at him. I looked at the man who wanted to be a king. Now he was just a broken toy discarded by the boys who played rougher than he did. I left him there crying in the yard. I did not feel pity. I felt balance. The scales had been corrected. He had tried to take my life. I had left him with his, but I took everything that made it worth living. Back at the dinner table, Leo stirred in Ebony's arms. He let out a small cry. Ebony shushed him gently, rocking him back to sleep. I looked at the glass of water in front of me. The crystal caught the light from the chandelier. It was clear. It was pure. I picked up the glass. Ebony looked at me. Rosa stopped eating. They both watched me. They knew the significance of the gesture. 1 year ago I said my voice steady. 1 year ago I held a glass just like this. It was filled with death. Tonight it is filled with life. I raised the glass. To the truth, I said, it tastes bitter going down, but it cleans you out. To family, Rosa added, raising her wine glass. The one we choose. To us, Ebony whispered, kissing the baby's head. We drank. The water was cool and refreshing. It tasted like freedom. I set the glass down. I looked at my family. We were survivors. We were scarred. I had lost a wife. Ebony had lost a husband. But we had gained something stronger. We had gained the knowledge that we could walk through fire and come out the other side holding the gold. I am proud of you, Ebony, I said. You are going to be a good mother. You are already a better mother than the one you had. Ebony smiled. Her eyes filled with tears, but they did not fall. I learned from the best, she said. The dinner wound down. Rosa cleared the table. Ebony took Leo upstairs to put him in the crib that sat in the nursery I had designed myself. I walked into the study. The room was different now. I had removed the bar cart. I had replaced the rug where Camilla fell, but the desk was the same. The chair was the same. It was the seat of power. I sat down. I looked out the window at the city lights. Chicago was shining. My buildings were out there standing tall against the night. I was Augustus King. I was 71 years old, and I was still the undisputed ruler of my world. The phone on my desk rang. It was the private line, the one that only 5 people in the world had. Alexandra Price, my broker, the mayor, and 2 others who were dead. I frowned. It was 9 o'clock at night. I picked up the receiver. Augustus King speaking. There was a pause, then a voice I had not heard in 30 years. It was a voice from the days before the skyscrapers, from the days of the street. It was gravel and smoke. "Hello, Gus," the voice said. I stiffened. My hand tightened on the phone. "Marcus," I said, "you are supposed to be in federal prison." "I got out early," Gus Marcus said. "Good behavior. And a good lawyer." "What do you want, Marcus?" "I saw the news," Marcus said. "I saw what happened with your son-in-law." "Sloppy Gus. You used to be cleaner. You used to be quieter. I handled it," I said, my voice cold. "Did you?" Marcus asked. "You handled the boy. But you forgot about the partnership, Gus. You forgot about the seed money. The money I gave you in '82 to buy your first lot. That debt was paid." I snapped. "I paid you back triple. You paid the principal," Marcus said. "But you didn't pay the interest. And you know how we calculate interest, Gus. It compounds." I stood up. I walked to the window. "I do not owe you anything, Marcus. Stay away from me. I am not coming for you, Gus," Marcus said, laughing softly. "You are old. You are done. I am coming for the future. I hear you have a grandson. Leo, is it?" My blood turned to ice. "If you touch him, I will burn this city to the ground with you in it," I roared. Marcus laughed again. "The fire is already lit, Gus. Check your email." The line went dead. I dropped the phone. I opened my laptop. An email had just arrived. No subject. I clicked it open. It was a photo, a live feed. It showed the nursery upstairs. It showed Leo sleeping in his crib. But there was something else in the photo. A shadow falling across the crib. A shadow of a man standing just out of frame holding a lighter. I ran. I ran faster than I had in 20 years. I grabbed my cane. I ran for the stairs. I shouted for Rosa. I shouted for Ebony. The war wasn't over. The first battle was won, but the old enemy had returned, and this time he wasn't after my money. He was after my heart. I hit the stairs, taking them 2 at a time. "I am coming, Leo," I whispered. "I am coming." Augustus King was going to war again, and this time he wasn't taking prisoners. In the end, I learned that a true legacy isn't built on steel beams or offshore bank accounts. It is built on the people you choose to let inside your walls. Blood does not make you family. Loyalty does. I spent a lifetime guarding my empire from strangers only to realize the hungry wolves were sleeping in my own guest rooms. But I also learned that it is never too late to fight back. You do not need youth to be dangerous. You just need the truth and the will to use it. Protect what matters, even if it means burning down everything else to keep it safe. If you think I did the right thing by destroying my enemies to save my daughter, hit that like button and subscribe. Tell me in the comments, would you have forgiven Hunter or would you have let the mob handle him like I did?